Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council, September 23rd, 6:30 p.m. Lisa, could I get a roll call?
Councilmember Clark?
Here.
Dearness?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Wait. Here. Mayor Toussaint.
Here. Robert, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
Yes, please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item we have here is public communications, written or verbal. Lisa, would you please announce the criteria for public comment?
At this time, please direct comments to the City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the council. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes.
Our first speaker is Torben Nielsen.
Do I speak into this? All right. All right. I'll start by saying thank you for having me here. My name is Torben Nielsen, and I'm a Danish citizen. And I've just recently traveled over here for Danish Days, and I want to say thanks for a really good arrangement event and a nice event. So the reason I was here was Sabine was asking me to come up here and not like point any fingers or anything, but like, explain and maybe enlighten you on how we do like bicycle lanes in Denmark. And bicycles are a big thing in Europe as in general, but I think like we excel at it in Denmark. And bicycles for me, like growing up in the country outside a small town, I used to bike every day. And in Denmark we have a lot of rain. I mean that's really I mean it sucks. So but I mean I do it anyway, and I think it's good for young people. If they go to school in Saint-Ernest, if you have some bicycle lanes, they would be able to go there. It would increase the health, like the general health. And I mean, again, I'm not pointing any fingers, but in Denmark we have a big company called Novo Nordisk, and they are producing insulin for diabetes, and our biggest customers are the American market. So I mean, like it's also a reason why I think you should put at least young health on top of your priorities, and that is what we do in Denmark. And we spend billions of Danish crowns on bicycle lanes and bicycle infrastructure in general. So I think that would be a good idea. And also, maybe if you could encourage young people to use their bikes more, you would get rid of some of the traffic issues in here. I mean, it's a lot easier to make room for 100 bikes than 100 cars, obviously. So if you could, and then also, I mean, make a business out of it. In Denmark, we also lend out, you can borrow bikes for free in Denmark in the major cities. And you can park outside the cities and then just take the bike instead of the bus. So, I mean, it's a way of commuting back and forth from work and from school, and I mean it's just a great way to get around. And I mean it also I feel affects your mental health, because by getting this exercise we have a national health organization, and they recommend 30 minutes of workout every day. And once you're traveling back and forth from school and work, you're not getting anything from the time you spend in your vehicles or in the bus. But at least you could work out during that time, so I think that would be a really good idea. So maybe go for some bicycle lanes, and yeah, that would be awesome, I think. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Baker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Baker, CEO, United Boys and Girls Clubs. Just wanted to call to give you an update that, just want to stop in to give you an update that our program at the Solvang school is just thriving. We're up to 68 kids enrolled. We're anticipating that by the end of next week we'll be well over 75, encroaching 100 here soon. But our goal is to reach as many kids as we possibly can. And as I've told each and every one of you, if you know a child that's in need of the services, I will leave a few of my, I'll leave enough here for everybody on the council, but if you know of a child that's in need of the Boys and Girls Club services, please feel free to send them our way. We'll make sure we get them enrolled in our program. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Andreas Piper.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Andreas Piper, and I'm a homeowner and a 14-year resident of Solvang. I'd like to address the council on 3 specific matters as part of the public comment section. First item is the agenda language. I do believe that public business using the public's money needs to be discussed in public. As not all of us have experience in local government, it is important for the City Council not to create artificial barriers through the omission of statements or guidelines. It disturbs me that ever since the termination of the previous city manager, specifically on the last 2 agendas for September 9 and September 23, the following language has disappeared from the agenda, which says, "At this time, please direct comments to the City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the Council." Yes, reading it at the beginning is okay, but it does not allow people to come prepared, or some might not even turn up. Now, dropping this off is not something that just happens. It was purposefully deleted. I don't know why. The paragraph has been in every agenda that I look back for over the last 2 to 3 years. Now it's gone. Now, I have the privilege of having worked for the County of Santa Barbara as an assistant department head for many years and retired, so I understand local government. However, many people do not, and by excluding that paragraph, I believe the council is limiting or placing artificial restraints on the public's right to comment. Someone could conclude that they can only speak on agenda items and therefore not even turn up. Secondly, I'm glad to see the council is setting out a lot of RFPs. That's really good. However, what I do not see is an RFP for a PIO. Now, I have no bone to pick with the current PIO, and what I've seen so far and what the council has revealed about her background and experience is that the PIO seems well qualified and experienced and is doing a good job on short notice. However, it's public money, and I would encourage you to put out an RFP for a PIO at the end of the PIO's contract. Finally, city attorney costs. As a council, many of you were elected on fiscal accountability. However, you went ahead and selected a city attorney that is on average 25% more expensive than any other of the attorneys that bid. At this time, I'd like to request that at a future council meeting, a detailed financial report is tabled, highlighting the costs for the fiscal year 1920 and how that compares to, say, the last 3 to 4 years, and how much of the 1920 legal budget has already been spent. This is our money. We are the taxpayers. We'd like to know how it's being spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick DeCoche.
Good evening, Mayor Toussaint and City Council members. I'm Nick DeCoche, and I'm a member of the We Watch Water Issues Group. I'm here to follow up on a letter we sent to the mayor and to our Public Works Director recommending that our city opt out of the new single-tunnel Delta Conveyance project, which is an option that we have. There are 4 main reasons that we make this recommendation. Number 1 is the estimated cost of $14 billion for the project. Our city's share of that cost will be in the $3 to $4 million range to be passed directly through to our citizen ratepayers. Most importantly, there are numerous lesser cost alternatives for future water supply than a tunnel underneath the Bay Delta, and less expensive methods to mitigate for sea level rise, for earthquake damage, and for water quality degradation. Secondly, there are very questionable estimates on future water reliability being promulgated by the Department of Water Resources. For decades, annual reliability estimates have frequently not been met, but that's almost a given with California's significant annual variations in rainfall. Additionally, these questionable reliability estimates are based on major increases in surface storage, more dams, and more reservoirs, which is not affordable and not practical as a 21st century solution. How can we possibly expect water reliability when statewide water allocation quantities are 5 times greater than is available in a typical California water year? These allocations equate to a whole lot of paper water. Third, a tunnel, no matter what size, will continue to aggravate endangered species and habitat conditions in the Delta. Taking more water out of the Delta cannot possibly help fishery and habitat conditions. New tunnel intakes at the north end of the tunnel will deprive the Delta of the high-quality Sacramento River water that currently improves Delta water quality. Additionally, the loss of significant fresh water through the Delta will degrade the healthy Delta farming and recreation economies. And lastly, our recommendation is partly due to the past unreliability of DWR's cost and reliability estimates. We all know that history. There's a lot of detail behind this recommendation for such a short presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions or meet you in further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabine Overson.
Hi, my name is Sabine Overson, and thank you so much. I want to say something a little bit, that has to do with Christmas. My passion is I would like to bring as much Danish I can bring into this town. And being a Dane myself, I think I have a lot of things I can bring to the plate. One of the things is not going to cost a lot. The only thing that's going to cost a lot is a Christmas tree that we're talking about getting up. I think $15,000 Christmas tree up in the park. I know we're down on 6,000. Sorry, I cannot scoop that up. I do want to recommend, in order for us to celebrate the Christmas tree, what we do in Denmark, we dance around the Christmas tree. Christmas Eve, not that we're going to do it on Christmas Eve, but we dance around the Christmas tree, have our presents under. We're not going to have presents under that Christmas tree, but what I would really like to see is to have us, the community, children, visitors, tourists, coming together around one specific day and just kind of what we call dance around the Christmas tree. We hold hands, and I know if there's not enough space, we can do several circles and make it bigger, and we can have fun coming together as a community and sing some, not Danish carols, but some English Christmas songs. And then on the side, we could where you can buy hot chocolate for the families. We could have glühwein, julegløgg, the nice hot red wine, whatever it's called. And then we could have a Danish æbleskiver that is, æbleskiver is only during Christmas time. I would like to have that there so we can kind of bring something special from the outside in that we have that they don't have and that they can be part of enjoying. And then on the side, we can learn, the children can have a table where they can buy a Danish class in Ballard. And every year, one of the teachers asked me to give lessons about Danish culture, and we do Danish crafts. So I would really like for this community to come together and do this nice, fun activity. I also want to say thank you to Torben. I did kind of see if he was willing to, not just me, but also as another Dane that is a tourist in town, to give a part of his view or what it could benefit this town to get bike lanes and things. I have many other ideas, but this is the first one I like to see coming up this Christmas. Yes, thank you so much, and have a good night.
Thank you. That's my last public speaker slip. With that, we'll move on to item number 2, executive. Sorry, what? Oh, I didn't have one up here. Oh, and I'm sorry. And I got another one from Hank Homburg. Were you during public comment or? Okay, so I'll take Ed and then Hank.
Thank you, Mayor Toussaint, City Council. I'm just making comments on Danish Days this year. We had a very nice Danish Days. We had a great closing ceremony for Danish Days. But I'm going to make a comment that there was some misconceptions about Danish Days and how it was put together. And Danish Days was not organized by the Danish Brotherhood or the Danish Sisterhood or Rebuild or the Dania, but Danish Days was organized by the Danish Days Foundation. It was founded in 1995 to maintain Danish Days. It has a board of 10 individuals who literally spend thousands of hours every year to organize the Danish Days. There are a number of volunteers who come in on the last 4 days who spend literally several thousand hours putting it together. We are, I will not say we, but the city has been generous in the past, giving approximately $30,000 to Danish Days Committee in the last couple of years. But if you go through and take a look at the number of hours that are put in by the volunteers, that would be, if you hired somebody to do it, you would be looking at somebody in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $200,000 to do the same thing. And it wouldn't happen because the professionals would not know how to put it together. The volunteers that come in are the same individuals who've come in over the last 20 to 30 years. We get new volunteers every year and they come back, but it is entirely a voluntary organization. Danish Days Foundation does appreciate the funds that the city provides. But the one thing I was kind of disappointed in is that other than having in the parade and seeing some people walking around town, not one of the city council members participated in getting Danish Days, volunteering for Danish Days, and either helping set up, tear down, or come over and do some cooking, or helping in some of the other booths, but which I think is a shame for the city of Solvang. But I thank you very much for this time, and I hope Danish Days is successful again next year. Thank you.
And I'd just like to add, I really like that you guys brought in the axe throwing this year. That was a lot of fun. And next year, if I'm asked to volunteer, I have no problem with that, but I received no request. Hank Homburg.
Mayor Toussaint, council members, again, echoing what most people said about Danish Days, I thought it was great. And one of the things I saw in particular that looked real successful was something for kids to do. That Lego tent was packed. So again, if we could get something in Solvang that is kid-oriented, I think that would be a real huge thing besides just gift stores and stuff. I thought I was amazed how many kids were in that Lego thing. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I'm Dutch, I'm not Danish, and the Dutch have the best bike system in the world. But that being said, sorry, I was going to say that as far as getting kids on bikes, especially in the high school, that would alleviate so much traffic, is if we can work in collaboration with the high school and possibly like eradicate their need for physical education if they ride their bike to school every day. I don't know, something like that. But there's no way you're going to get kids giving up their cars. They love their cars when they're 15, 16. I know I did, unless there's some kind of incentive. So, and that being said, also with regard to traffic and traffic calming, I know that might be something on the topic today, but I would really like to have the council again consider hiring a motor cop on the next contract with the sheriffs. It's really not that expensive, and I think it would be a really, really beneficial thing. I walk on Chalk Hill every day, and I see people doing 60 miles an hour every day. I mean, it's crazy. So I don't know. I just really think that by stroke of luck, we haven't had any fatalities in town with the way the traffic is. So anyway, that's all I have to say, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to item number 2. Could I get a title readout?
Item 2 is executive, PIO, and special auditor reports and the advance calendar.
So starting with city manager's report, it's been a couple of busy weeks, including Danish Days and all the festivities over the last weekend. The visitor center kicked off the Danish Days, or right before the Danish Days kicked off, with a ribbon cutting ceremony with Brenda Ball. That was great. Now reporting on a couple of items of operational nature within the city. I'll first start with the planning department, and the special city auditor will have some comments on that as well. But as you may be aware, the planning department director position is currently vacant. We also had the code check services providing building and permit services to the city and their contract with us. So the city has entered into a limited duration contract with Wildan Services to provide those services to the city immediately. We also have issued an RFP for a competitive process to look for a little bit longer term solution for building, permitting, as well as on-call planning services for the city. Now, this is still a temporary solution, and there will be a report coming to council on the next council agenda to seek council policy direction before staff develops a more precise recommendation for future operations of the department. I'd also like to mention that staff has been working on looking for a permitting software. We are down to 2 final vendors, but we recommend that we delay that decision on the vendors until we can analyze the business processes before we kick off the implementation of the software. Now, another exciting RFP is the Yule Fest RFP, to seeking a vendor to hold a month-long Yule Fest, or Christmas celebration, for the city of Solvang. That RFP has closed, and we have scheduled and noticed a meeting this Wednesday on the 25th at 6:30 p.m. to select a vendor to hold that Yule Fest, and that would be an opportunity for the council to hear from the proposers, as well as for the public to provide their input during that public meeting. Now, the advanced calendar, you would notice that the format has changed somewhat from before, and it's now organized by a categorical category, which will hopefully help us prioritize and project manage and move things forward going forward. There is one report that I should mention that is scheduled for the second meeting in October, which is the quarterly financial report, and that would be an opportunity for the council to hear about the latest trends in both revenues as well as in expenditures, given the changes in contracts and some of the services that have occurred since the budget process. And that is really a best practice to have those quarterly reports and to have those updates to the council. With that, I will hand it over to the special city auditor and then the PIO, and I believe Brenda Ball also has a short report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. A little background here. Pursuant to the Office of Special City Auditor as provided under Article 7 of the Solvang City Charter, the contract specifically called for 3 items addressed in this report. 1, the consultant is to review structure, performance, and projected need of the planning department and make recommendations on department structure, staff, project timelines, best practices. The consultant will also conduct special investigations on past projects to investigate claims of misconduct. As appropriate, consultant will make recommendations and recruit planning service providers for the council to engage on a contractual basis. Number 2, consultant to research organizational structure of comparable cities, including departmental responsibilities, staffing levels, use of consultants or contract employees, and scope of work accomplished, and make recommendations on changes to the city's organizational structure to ensure alignment with best practices, efficient workflows, and overall cost savings. Number 3, consultant to work with a subcommittee of the council for the review of destination marketing services and develop recommendations for the council. Committee may authorize consultant to create and distribute a request for proposal for these marketing services and/or develop a study session for the council and the community to learn about best practices for this industry. As Special City Auditor, I've been actively engaged in a review of city operations. I made 2 specific recommendations at this time regarding the planning department, and the city manager here went over those, but I'll give you a little bit more detail. The city's planning department consists of 3 full-time positions: planning and community director, assistant planner, a building permit technician. There was also one part-time code enforcement position. The planning and community development position is currently vacant. This presents an opportunity for the city to review the departmental structure, assess functions and needs to ensure the city provides the community with high-quality services while optimizing efficiencies and lowering costs. Having reviewed the function of planning and community development, I found inconsistencies and inefficiencies in management of building and plan inspections. I have documented these instances in which policies and procedures were not followed, and how some projects in the past were processed expediently while others appeared to have suffered substantial delay. At this point, the Planning and Community Development Department has an immediate need for building official inspections, plan check, and on-call planning services. The city contracted the building official inspections and plan check services with California Code Check. The city received a notice from California Code Check terminating their contract as of September 22nd, 2019. The city has issued, as the city manager said, an RFP for these services, which will close on October 2nd, 2019. Due to the vacancy in the Planning Community Development Director position, the RFP also includes a request for proposal to provide professional planning on-call services. It is my recommendation that the city staff work with on-call planning consultant to review the city's policies and procedures before making further recommendations. Planning services are highly dependent on volume of work at any given time. Thus, the function of planning for municipalities is often augmented with contracted services for scalability. City staff has also researched replacement of outdated permitting software. The city has gone through a review of permitting software providers and has narrowed down the list to 2 top finalists. It is my recommendation that the city first review the city processes working with the on-call planning provider and then move forward with implementation of the software. The software will provide much-needed information technology and will enable the city to enact modern processes as well as improve online services for applicants. That's my first item, and I wanted to say that the planning department here has been very helpful, very supportive as we look openly at making changes. And I very much enjoyed and appreciate their attitude and commitment to being excellent and to providing equitable services to everyone. And I have heard from council that it is your desire that that we offer the same high-quality service to everyone rather than any individual, perhaps because of a relationship, perhaps being given a different kind of treatment than someone else. So if you have any questions about that item, that's fine, but otherwise I'll go on to the next item on my list. Tourism and destination marketing services. In the prior fiscal year, the management of tourism and marketing budget was also placed under the Community and Development Department. The city staff and city's contracted PIO are actively working to release requests for proposals or a series of requests for proposals to provide the city of Solvang community with alternative tourism and marketing services. The requested services will focus on efficient allocation of resources and return on investment. And I think there's something important to note here, as I've heard from council, is that we don't really want to necessarily replace what we previously had with the same thing, and that we're looking for metrics and specific ways to measure performance. The fact that the city was spending in previous years over $1 million on these services, I understand that you have a right and responsibility on behalf of the taxpayer to make sure that you actually have measurable results from the money that you spend. And the good news is working with the PIO, working with the city manager, working with professionals in the community who are experts in this industry, that I believe we can deliver a much more efficient, measurable, accountable tourism and marketing expenditure, if that is indeed what the council seeks. Next, information technology. Working closely with the acting city manager, administrative services director, I reviewed the information technology function of the city, have made recommendations to add more resources to management of our IT function. As reported in the New York Times on August 20th of this year, computer systems in 22 small towns in the state of Texas were hacked and held for ransom in a widespread coordinated cyber attack that sent emergency management officials scrambling and prompted a federal investigation. Information technology is vital to the city's security of assets and operation. The acting city manager concurs with this assessment, and we have executed a contract with Landspeed to perform an assessment of our server infrastructure and storage, end user devices such as workstations, firewalls and security, routers, switches and wireless, business continuity, data backup solutions, applications, both cloud and on-premises. The city has also entered into a limited contract with Landspeed to provide additional network support and IT consulting services, and the fiscal impact is $30,000 under the purview of the acting city manager. The staff will return with the results of the request for proposal for planning department. For the planning department once the RFP process is complete. Chris Shergwin, who is head of Landspeed, is here. Chris, are you here? Yes. So here to answer any questions. They have they work with municipalities up and down the coast and on towards LA County, and have a nice pedigree, over 16 technicians at their disposal, which will hopefully augment our capacity to deal with these issues. I did have a chat with Chris about our assessment that happened the other day, and he said that there's opportunities for improvement in securing our data, securing our network, training employees, upgrading from an entry-level firewall to an enterprise-level firewall. Currently, our data is vulnerable to malicious attacks. It's not good. Our network is more on the entry level, and our security, I asked him to rate it from 1 to 10, and he said he'd give us about a 4 right now. And our objective would be to get to at least a 7. Cost too much money for a municipality to get to a 10 or a 9, but that we could, with a little bit of upgrade and focus, get to a 10, get to a 7. Our backups are rotated in a manual fashion, and hopefully we can move to migrate to automated cloud-based provider services with geographic redundancy. So I think this is really important. I also must note that I worked with, I think, the mayor and the city manager here, acting city manager, to secure an alarm system for our physical buildings. I talked with one council member. I said, how is it that we don't have an alarm to protect our buildings? And she said, well, that seems to be the way we've just done business in the past, and that it's time to make changes. So I appreciate that recognition and that support. So securing our buildings, securing our IT infrastructure, improving our printing services, and having an opportunity to improve on tourism and destination marketing services. I also just wanted to, if you don't know Brenda and Diane, who have been so helpful on this, I wanted them to stand up and say hi. I'm sure you folks in the community know Brenda and Diane. You want to say hi? So they're the ones that I've had to rely on for a lot of very good information about how the department works. So if you have any questions, I'm here.
Looks like some good team effort. Is there any questions of the...
I always have questions.
Okay.
Actually, this is a question for Chris from Landspeed. Do you want to come up? Thank you for coming and speaking to us. The basic question I have is, if we were to be attacked, much like these cities in Texas were, how soon do you foresee getting us back up and running? Is it a matter of days, weeks?
It depends on the type of attack. There's a wide variety of attacks out there. If it was a more serious attack, it could be days to get up and running, potentially. So it's hard to answer that, but there are some definite steps that can be taken proactively to get the city in a much better place to be able to prevent and or alleviate that type of disaster from happening, that type of malware or attack happening.
So I assume we're going to see some kind of a staff report on this?
Yes, you will. Absolutely.
And also, do we have a Bitcoin account just in case? No?
Should have bought that years ago. Any other questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify, you're currently being used as a consultant to take a look and do an overview of our current security system.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I do have one more question.
Yes.
One of my passions, I campaigned on this and I've talked about this in various meetings, is the idea of moving the city in the direction of a smart city. I think that we can do this incrementally, and I would love to know what you can bring to the table in that regard.
Yes, so as Tom mentioned, my company has worked with many cities up and down the Central Coast, and one of the things that we do is we work with cities to help them implement strategic plans. So looking 5, 6, 7 years down the road and putting together a plan of how to leverage technology to get you to where you want to be as a city. So looking at things like broadband, right, for the city. How do we get better broadband, more options, higher speeds is a big one. Looking at things like wireless and cellular. Security is a big thing. Data, how do constituents access city services? All those things can make up a strategic plan. So that's one of the big things that we help cities with.
I was thinking more along the lines of data collection and management. So we can produce data analytics with respect to city operations and managing it more effectively that way.
Yeah.
I know that may be a software issue as opposed to hardware.
It is. It's more of a software issue, and a lot of cities are moving more towards cloud-based services. There are third-party servers or companies out there that provide software designed specifically for cities. And so we work with other cities to help them analyze and look at those software packages that are out there and find the one that fits your city's needs most effectively.
I'd like to see that. Also, I'd like to see something on smart antennas where you can put a variety of different things on them, including surveillance cameras, for the purpose of monitoring traffic as it comes in and out of the Solvang and other purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I say one more thing? Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I also want to point it out that Patrick Meyer is our on-site IT services provider, and he has been for some time. And we brought Landspeed in to work with him and support him. And if you're here, Patrick is here. Really grateful for his attitude and for his help and his support. And good job, Patrick. Thanks. Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Katie?
Good evening, Mayor Toussaint, members of the council. Can you hear me all right? So I'm excited to be here for my first official report as a public information officer, and I'm excited to say that it's been an extremely busy last 2 weeks since I saw you last, working on the RFP for Yulefest. So you'll see that in the consent agenda, but if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'm looking forward to Wednesday night with the special meeting to pick the Yulefest coordinator. So I wanted to give a little bit of a look into the next 3 months. We've talked about having one of the reasons that you hired an acting PIO for the next 3 months is to develop a communications plan and present that to you so that you can decide how to move forward with that recommendation. In the meantime, I'm also providing these ad hoc services, including public relations, and there's been a lot of media relations in the last couple of weeks. The media coverage reports that I send out every 2 weeks have been quite lengthy, so there's been a lot of talk about Solvang right now. And in addition, I'm also working on some of these RFPs for various communications functions. So I've been working with the special city auditor and with the city manager as well on this. So looking forward and looking at some of the city council's goals, one of the goals that was mentioned was reinvigorating the Solvang brand. So taking a look at it and saying, okay, well, what needs to be improved upon? It's been quite a while since any graphics were made or redesigned for the city. So we're looking at doing an RFP before the end of the year for branding purposes. So looking at updating the city logo and branding elements such as font, colors, graphics, updating the Solvang branding for tourism, so name, logo, branding elements, the Solvang Visitor Center logo, and an updated Parks and Rec logo. So those are the logos that currently exist under the City of Solvang umbrella. And then what we hope to receive from that is a brand book that can be used for the entire city and any contractors that you work with as well, that talks about all of those branding guidelines, all of the deliverables, the logos, the colors, the fonts, etc. So that's your go-to Bible, so to speak, for graphics. The next RFP that we're working on, as the Special City Auditor mentioned, is a marketing tourism RFP. And this will cover all marketing services such as PR, digital marketing, print marketing, and managing the tourism website. So this, right now, what we're doing in the meantime is to not jump the gun and issue an RFP too quickly. We're actually finding some solutions to make sure that nothing gets lost. So as we wait for the assets from the Solvang CVB, we're actually looking at the current city website and finding a lot of ways to improve the current website for communications as well as for marketing and tourism. So we'll be developing a visitor center webpage pretty soon and working with Brenda on that. I'm sure she can speak to that a little bit more. And then the next RFP, we've been looking at the Solvang CVB and other organizations that work for cities to promote tourism. And one of the functions that many cities have are a group salesperson or a team. That oftentimes does not fall within the realm of a marketing professional, so we've separated that into a different RFP. So we anticipate there will be a separate sales RFP for the City of Solvang. And then finally, we are looking at doing an RFP for the city website, but looking to do that in 2020, because right now you have a lot of capabilities on improving the current website within its current infrastructure using Civic Plus. And then another big thing that we've been talking about with the city staff are the customer service options. So for people who call into the city, hopefully they have a good experience already, but we have found room for improvement there. So one thing I'm working on with the city manager right now, and I do have to say it has been a pleasure working with Mrs. Bradford. She is terrific to work for and with, and I think we're getting a lot accomplished in such a short amount of time. So the first thing is an internal communications policy. If you look at other cities, a lot of them have a very large communications policy, and this is separate from a plan. This is a policy saying, okay, here's what staff should not be doing. Oftentimes it does say, okay, council members, here's what maybe you should or should not be doing on social media, for instance. We've already covered that. We have a social media policy to begin with. We're also looking at, okay, who's handling what when someone calls into the city? Who should be addressing media? Who should be addressing this subject, that subject? So the first step is the communications policy, and then looking at a digital communications policy. And then we've talked about creating a project list so that there is a living document that says some of these key projects we're working on right now, who is handling what. And when I say who, which position is handling which project. And then a more permanent list that everyone in the staff can use so they know who to send people to when they call. Just making sure there isn't a lot of, oh, well, let me find out for you. It should be really easy, get you straight to the person you need. We're also looking at customer service solutions with a step-by-step integration plan, using perhaps government help desk software, and providing a ticketing system for calls to make sure inquiries receive responses, and then also to make sure they're actually done. A lot of these software actually include customer feedback solutions, which is great, so you can start to see how everyone is doing who answers the phone or perhaps responds through email. We've also, thanks to Patrick, we have a communications@cityofsolvang.com email address for City Hall that is going to be used on social media. So if anybody decides to click email on social media, that will go to communications@. And then speaking of internal communications, we have been working every day to improve internal communications. One thing that I've been working on is that communications plan, as I mentioned, and I thought it would be good actually to mention a few of those items today and get a head start. So the first thing, I've met with a majority of the staff, received some great feedback. I've also talked with community leaders, the media, etc. And one feedback I did get was that the public are looking for office hours from the council So I would highly encourage council members to consider office hours, whether it be a shared office hour that you take turns using or something for the mayor. But that is something I've received a lot of information about from people. So I think they want to see you. And then the second one is for the acting city manager. I actually had this note prior to her starting as city manager, but I've made the recommendation that she meet with all staff members. That was also feedback that I received a couple of weeks ago, saying that some staff members felt like there wasn't as much communication internally. So as time permits, because obviously she's a very busy lady, she has agreed that sounds like a good priority. And then lastly, I've started sending out press releases to all staff members. So anytime there's a press release, the entire staff gets it. That was one thing as well in the past. Some staff felt a little in the dark. And especially since we have two buildings here, sometimes if you're in the wrong building at the wrong time, you don't hear the news about whatever it might be. So that should help quite a bit. As we develop e-communications, which is obviously part of the bigger long-term communications plan, staff can receive those e-newsletters as well. And then for external communications, I'm happy to announce we are obtaining the @City of Solvang URL handles for Twitter and Instagram. And that may not sound like a big deal to some people, but it is when you can't get that handle that you really want. And so now we have the same handle on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which makes it easy for people to remember. We're also working on YouTube right now to get a custom URL for the same reason. We have about 84 subscribers today, and we need to get past 100 so that I can get that custom URL. So anybody who is on YouTube, please do subscribe today, and we'll be able to do that. So thank you. That's my report for today.
Perfect. Do we have any other reports? Brenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. First, I wanted to thank you for your support and for attending the ribbon cutting. We had a great time and a good crowd. We had a lot of fun. And those that missed it, you missed the cookies and the popcorn. So my quick report is just to give you a little bit of the numbers, and since Chris is interested in numbers, first off, we printed out a form for all the businesses. And the reason I did this is because coming into the visitor center, I had to come in with no information because I had no access to the previous information. So in order for our staff to be able to know what all the businesses are, I created a form, and we've delivered so far 70 of those to the individual businesses. And we've talked to those individual businesses and asked them to tell us about their business and return the form to us. So far, I have a little over 10% of those who've returned their forms. I have still another 50 businesses to visit. As Katie mentioned, we have social media. We have the handle of Solvang Visitor Center. We also have the solvangvisitorcenter.com. We're in Facebook and YouTube, not YouTube yet, Facebook and Instagram. As of this afternoon, we already have 65 followers in the Instagram. What I posted in Facebook about our ribbon cutting, we had 2,400 views of that. So we're getting some attention. Of course, we have a long ways to go. Visitors guides that we handed out just on Saturday during Danish Days, we handed out over 500 visitors guides. And the maps that we hand out that come from the Solvang Chamber, those are the only maps we've been able to have at this time. And we handed out over 1,500 of those maps in the last 2 weeks. So we're making a lot of progress. The next thing, the lawyer asked me from Chip's law firm, since I did not have access to the previous pieces, for us to go into Google and create our own Solvang Visitor Center in Google, so that when people type in Solvang Visitor Center, they would come to our information rather than someone else's. So I'd like to report that I've made some progress in that. I have not totally accomplished what we set out to do. It would be very nice if other organizations would not call themselves the official visitor center, because so far no other organization has given me any money except the city. So it would be nice if they would not call themselves the official visitor center. However, we have, if you type in Google right now, Solvang Visitor Center, and you write Copenhagen Drive, you will see what we've posted so far. And so far I have, in the last month, which hasn't even been a month because I just did it last week, we've had 1,034 views in the last month. So we're making progress, and we'll just continue making progress. As soon as we can have our website, that will also give more validity to our Google search page that we have. One other piece in Facebook, our reach just for the last 5 days was 3,455. Of course, we want it to be a lot bigger than that, but it's not too shabby for the first 5 days. And that's my report. Thank you so very
Brenda.
much.
All right, I think that concludes the executive reports. Move on to the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to pull 3A.
Okay, approval of the agenda presented. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
Yeah, I move that we go ahead and approve the rest of the consent agenda with the exception of item 3A.
Okay, I'll second that.
Councilmember Dearness,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes. Okay, item A. Karen.
So I'm not quite sure if it should have been under 3A or under the regular business agenda, but I did notice that we are missing, if I'm looking at the right agenda here, we're missing the council comments. And I would like to put those up under the beginning of our meeting. So I'd like to go back to that and have them put after either public comment communications or after the executive report. I feel it's
So
very
that
important.
item is there as item 11, so it is here on the agenda.
Okay, so I didn't see it on, was it on a revised one? Because I didn't see it on mine.
It's right here. I'm seeing it on mine. I don't know. If
Oh, it's mixed in, okay, I see, it's mixed in, okay,
AB 1234.
yes.
Oh,
okay.
we just had it. The AB 1234 is there as a reminder to us to report out on anything that we
Okay.
attended that is paid for by the city.
Oh, okay, so it was mixed in with that, so I
Yeah,
didn't see that.
I'm just trying to make it very clear that it's there so that it's not forgotten about, since we're required to report out on any item that's paid for by the city.
Okay, well,
Not saying that there's an item every meeting, it's just a reminder.
well, I feel very, very strongly that we should have our council comments at the beginning of the meeting so that the general public can get an idea of things that might be important to us. It makes us seem more approachable and more personable to the public. And I know that it had been moved around under prior management, but I'd like to put it back in the beginning.
Okay. Well, we did have a meeting at the council level, and the council voted to have that at the very end. So we can always consider bringing it back up on the agenda, but tonight I would like to move that we move forward with the agenda as presented. I'll make that motion.
I guess I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded.
Mayor Toussaint,
Yes.
Councilmember Dearness,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Waite.
No.
On to the regular business agenda. Item 4, traffic calming, speed humps on Elm Avenue and Vyborg Road. Staff report.
Well, good evening, Mayor Toussaint and council members, Matt Vanderlinden, your Public Works Director and City Engineer. And I think it will be less confusing if I talk about each location completely separately and kind of conclude the conversation on each location before or the first location before I move on to the second. So I will start with Vyborg Road. So in the last 5 years, we've had 4 pretty significant accidents on Vyborg Road. The staff report spells out One of the accidents was a distracted driver texting or something on their cell phone. Another accident was a drunk driver. Another accident was a driver whose vision was obscured because they were driving west and the sun was setting, and they veered off the side and hit a parked car. And then one of the accidents was, in fact, as a result of speeding. But because of these, several accidents, after the most recent one last fall, several residents came to the city council and asked that the city council implement some kind of traffic calming measures. So at that time, the city council directed staff to move forward with some kind of traffic calming investigation. So there were no funds available for that. So at the mid-year budget adjustment last year, those funds were included and budgeted. And then shortly after that, the city hired a traffic engineer to investigate the location and make traffic calming recommendations. So when we hired the consultant for that, we had previously also gotten, and as you heard tonight, complaints of speeding on Chalk Hill Road and also Friedensburg Canyon Road. A lot of people like to walk on Friedensburg Canyon Road, and they're concerned for their safety and stuff with speeding cars through there. So we had the consultant look at Vyborg Road, Friedensburg Canyon Road, and Chalk Hill Road and make recommendations. So that was Associated Traffic Engineers. Their report, their technical memo is as an attachment in the staff report, so it's available if you have detailed questions on that. Anyway, so the consultant completed their analysis and has basically recommended edge striping on Vyborg Road. And basically when you have edge striping, it gives the visual appearance that the lane is narrower and the road is narrower. And so based on studies, they've concluded that encourages drivers to slow down. And then as kind of a more modern technique, there's different pavement markings that you can put down. So it's really low cost. You're just basically applying paint to the pavement, and the paint is applied to have a sort of a three-dimensional effect and look like a speed hump, but in fact it's not. It's just painted that way with shading and different colors. We recommend this as the first low-cost step to take. We're hoping that will resolve the problem. We did look at the possibility of adding additional stop signs along Vyborg. Of course, there's one, at both ends at Friedensburg Canyon Road and Alamo Pintado Road, and there's also one at Alisal Road, and halfway between Alisal Road and Alamo Pintado Road is another stop sign. So there's kind of a lot of stop signs already, so that wasn't recommended. And we don't have sidewalks along most of that stretch, so putting in crosswalks where we do have the stop signs would not really be appropriate because there aren't any access ramps or sidewalks. And we also looked at the idea of speed humps there. Based on the city's speed hump policy and just industry standard guidelines, whenever you have a road that has steep sections, you don't generally want to. Also, whenever you have a road where the speed limit is greater than 25, so 25 miles an hour, as you're aware, is the kind of a local street, residential street. But since this is a collector, it does have a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, so it's not recommended to have speed humps. So we recommend, as stated in the staff report, the edge striping and the pavement markings. The estimated cost is $19,000, and the city council would need to approve staff moving forward with a budget adjustment in order to implement that. So that pretty much concludes everything on Vyborg Road. So then on Elm Avenue, as you're aware, the section of Elm Avenue in question is there along the south side of Solvang School, so it borders the elementary school. And we had several residents complete a petition. So the city has a written speed hump policy, and there's a petition with that policy so that the residents can initiate requests for speed humps. So they've completed that petition, and in accordance with the city's speed hump policy, we checked in with the Sheriff's Department. They have no preference. We checked in with the Fire Department, Santa Barbara County Fire Department. Their general preference is not to have speed humps anywhere. They really do not like speed humps. They have a variety of reasons why they don't favor those. And so they provided us an email response to our inquiry with them, and that's included in the staff report. In addition, we checked in with the Solvang school to see if they had a preference one way or the other. We didn't want to bring a recommendation to the city council and install speed humps, and then the school comes back and says, "What are you doing?" You know? So we checked with them as well. They basically have no position. They're fine if we put them in. They're fine if we don't. But anyway, so as the staff was investigating all of this, we also looked at our sidewalk master plan, and the two top locations proposed for a sidewalk is the remaining block on Alisal Road, and then also along Elm by the Solvang School. So actually from 5th Street, from the intersection of Mission and 5th, up the east side of 5th Street to Elm, and then the south side of Elm up past, well, all the way to Atterdag. So there's a little bit of pieces of sidewalk in there, but most of it's just either a dirt path behind the curb or actually landscaping and fencing and hedges and stuff. Again, that location is recommended for sidewalk. It just so happens that we're in the process of beginning a grant application for that project, and we have twice applied for the ATP grant funding. That's the Active Transportation Program through Caltrans for that project, thinking, hey, this is right across the street from the school. It's got to get funded, but it's not transformational enough, and Solvang is not a disadvantaged community, so we score low with the Caltrans grants. But this grant that we're pursuing right now, it's the Measure A grant right here in Santa Barbara County. It's the Safe Routes to School grant program, and we believe this project will score real well and has a good chance of getting funded. The funding in that grant program will cover 50% of the cost. So what we're recommending now is move forward with the sidewalk project, and at the intersection of Elm and 4th Place North, with that project we would install, right now there's a stop sign on 4th Place, but not on Elm. So we would make a three-way or all-way stop there, and once the sidewalk's in with the proper access ramp, then we can put the crosswalk in there. And so with the school, additional stop sign with the crosswalks, that's what we're recommending. And then after that's completed, then revisit the idea of speed humps if we feel they're still necessary. But we believe that, once you got the sidewalk in there and the access ramp and the all-way stop and the crosswalks, that will force people to stop, and it's right on the corner. The stop sign and the all-way stop is right on that southwest corner of the school. So the school's right there. We can add school zone signing or something like that. When we do the engineering, we'll look at that. But so that's what staff recommends at this point. The cost of the Elm sidewalk that I'm referring to and those intersection improvements with the crosswalk is $230,000. That's the estimated construction cost, and the grant allows for funding up to 50% of the project cost. So our grant application would be for $115,000, and so the grant application is due, I believe it's in January of 2020, so this coming January, and then we would hear back a few months after that. And so the idea is next fiscal year we would, staff's recommending whether we get the funding or not. Next fiscal year we do the design, and the following year we do the construction. And so that's our recommendation. again, hold off on the speed humps until we finish that project and see if it's still needed. So that concludes my staff report, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Are there any questions of the staff report?
Yes.
Okay. Karen?
So I think it's a wonderful idea putting, not fog lines, but the
Edge striping?
the edge
Yeah.
striping on Vyborg, and I completely understand, and hope the public does, why we can't put speed humps on a major thoroughfare, because it would really slow down emergency vehicles reaching their destination. It would be a big deterrent, so I understand that. I have spoken to people in other cities where they've used the striping, and it's a psychological slowdown, and it really does make people slow down, and I think it'll work. And then I don't know if you can paint slow on the street. I don't know what kind of visuals you're allowed to paint on the street. I have no idea. I don't. I'm not an engineer, but just stuff like that I think would work very well. My main important point here is that in front of Solvang School on Atterdag, those crosswalks should be lit up like Christmas trees, because we have so many children crossing from one side to the other, and having just the crosswalk itself isn't enough. I mean, I've seen the blinky lights along the ground in other cities and the flashing lights that we do have here. I don't know what kind of work has gone into looking into that, but for me, that's a big priority, and I have no problem at all putting funding and, public funds towards, saving the lives of our elementary and junior high school children for safety issues.
Sure, if the city council would like us to do that, we can definitely include that project in next fiscal year. And I did fail to mention, I apologize, the superintendent of the Solvang School did actually request that make that exact same request.
So kind of along the same lines, but I was just looking at methods for funding. So I believe we have about $3 million in funds for traffic circulation related items with regard to SBCAG.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you could just explain to the council what ways you interpret that we could possibly use those funds.
Sure. So in the Measure A ordinance, the City of Solvang receives or has $3 million for what's called Mission Drive circulation improvements. That's the terminology they use. So I did have a couple conversations with the SBCAG staff on exactly how could we use that money and what limitations there might be. But basically, the idea is that money can be used to improve traffic circulation on Mission Drive, as well as related work such as sidewalk and storm drain improvements that would be related to any road work that we do. And those funds could also be used on side streets that impact or a project that would reduce traffic, project somewhere else in the city that would reduce traffic on Mission Drive. So any of the side streets like Alisal Road near Mission Drive or Alamo Pintado or 5th Street, any of those streets, some of the money could be used for that, as well as the San Ynez Valley traffic circulation study that's in progress right now has a few project ideas that the city council might want to consider, such as, for example, extension of Fjord Drive up through Buell Flat and up to Skip Mesa Road as a partial bypass. Any kind of project like that would be eligible use of those funds.
Now, you mentioned reducing traffic on 246, and I believe you're using that as the nexus to do work that's not necessarily right on 246. But does it have to be something that is actually reducing traffic on 246, or can it be something that is mitigating the impacts of the traffic on 246? Like, what is the...
I believe it would be both. I mean, I think, honestly, it's a little bit gray, the way the ordinance is written. And so I think they intentionally wrote it a little bit loose to give the city flexibility. So I think if there was a specific project what we would do is write a formal letter to SBCAG and say, if there was a formal project that we had kind of any kind of reservation that, oh, can we use these funds for that, we could write them a letter and get a written response from them to confirm. But I believe that they're wanting to be flexible in the interpretation of how the funds can be used, because it's intended to be used by the city basically that, you know, for whatever circulation improvements purposes the city feels appropriate.
Got it.
But we could send them a letter and get
Okay.
a written answer. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
I got a quick question.
Go ahead. I have a question as well.
Matt, can we use Measure A funds to lay down those blinky lights at the crosswalks like we do in the middle of Mission? You know, I'm talking about the newest crosswalk that we put down with the lights flashing on the ground so that people can see when somebody's trying to cross the street. There are at least 3 crosswalks that can be problematic, especially at certain times of the evening when it's dark and people are wearing dark clothing. And I know that has led to a couple of accidents, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was going with the funds. It's not really on the agenda to talk about Mission Drive tonight, but we do receive a lot of complaints about that. So I was kind of looking for areas where we could find the funding for that and then possibly bring it back as a separate agenda item for discussion.
Sure. And just, it might be helpful as a reminder, so when we did the recent crosswalk improvements on Mission Drive, the staff directed our consultant, and they included in the design the flashing beacon crosswalks at all of the crosswalks on Mission Drive. And when we submitted it that way to Caltrans, they would not approve it. And they specifically told us they only wanted the flashing beacon at the new mid-block crosswalk. And we argued with them, and but to no avail, and I'm sorry, but we did have that in the design originally. Now that we have had the one person that was hit, fortunately they weren't seriously injured, but that was hit in front of Landspeed there at 4th Place North and Mission Drive. You know, we can go back to Caltrans and say, hey, can we put these in? We actually have the design and everything already done, so it'd be easy to resubmit to Caltrans. Then would just be the cost for the encroachment permit and the construction. But as far as putting the flashing lights in the pavement versus on the side there, I think the staff and Caltrans prefer the flashing beacon system rather than the in-pavement ones, but Caltrans has approved that in the past, and that can be done. The systems that have been installed, that at least that we're aware of, have been problematic, and they have ones that are solar powered that has a little cell on the top of the unit, and but there's quite a bit of maintenance involved with them, and they have to be replaced regularly.
So I want to keep us moving forward because we're getting too off. But what I would like to request is, could we have you follow up with options for pursuing making that more consistent throughout Mission? Because I do think that is a real safety problem. We're getting a lot of complaints about it.
I do have another question. And
But that's fine. But do we have consensus to?
Yes.
All right. So there we go. That's done. Question?
Yeah. Going back to traffic mitigation on Vyborg and other areas, there's a pole with a speed limit. I don't know what this is. Speed.
Yeah, it's called a speed feedback sign.
There you go.
That flashes
on Alisal up at the top of the hill.
Right.
Could we use something like that on Vyborg?
We actually do have one on Vyborg already.
And they just ignore it.
But we could maybe look at adding another one. But
right as you get off Alma Potato.
Yeah, there's one on
to the right-hand
Vyborg
side.
closer to Alma Potato, and then there's also one on Alisal as you're coming down the hill.
And it doesn't have any impact?
No, those are somewhat effective. Yeah.
Guilting.
But, you know.
And what about those like rumble strips so that as people are driving, they're not big enough to slow anybody down, but it makes people aware that they might be driving too fast?
Sure. Well, what we did was, you know, basically utilize a consultant that they're traffic engineers. That's all they do. They're experts. They know in detail what are things allowed by the manual for uniform traffic control devices and according to Caltrans standards and things like that. And so, you know, we're basically, staff's recommending what they recommended.
Robert, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So, 67% of the residents on Elm Street came to the city and said, we've got 67% of the residents at least, and we want speed bumps. And so then we talked to the fire department, the police department, the school, and we decided to put in a crosswalk?
Yes, we're recommending putting in sidewalk, three-way stop sign with crosswalk, yes.
And what's the reasoning behind that? Why are we saying we don't want speed bumps? The residents want the speed bumps. They didn't ask for a crosswalk. And I'm not attacking you at all, Matt.
Sure. No, I understand. Well, I tried to explain, but let me just say that the fire department definitely does not like speed humps. You know, they basically accept it if the city council wanted to do that. And of course, the staff would be happy to implement whatever you direct us to do. We just feel that sidewalk is needed there. I did fail to mention also that we do own all the right-of-way along Elm, so we don't have to acquire any right-of-way. So the project is a lot easier to implement. So sidewalk is really needed there. Once the sidewalk goes in, a crosswalk can go in with the stop sign. So to me, the more prudent or cost-effective approach is to do that first and then revisit the need for speed humps. But if you feel that you want to put in speed humps at this time, we're happy to do that.
So $230,000 is the cost of the sidewalks and the crosswalk, et cetera.
improvements, yeah.
And speed humps would cost?
About $30,000. It's about $10,000 per speed hump. You have to grind the asphalt.
I have no more questions.
Whether it's going to go, and then you have to have the asphalt contractor come out and do that, and then there's some striping associated as well. That
Okay,
goes
thanks.
with the, yeah.
Are there any other questions of the staff report? We're going to public comment now. All right, so with that, we move on to public comment. Our first speaker is Eugene Boyle.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about item 4, traffic mitigation, Vyborg Road. Item 4, as it's stated in the agenda, traffic calming dash speed humps on Elm Avenue and Vyborg Road. Let me start right out by saying I'm not in favor of speed humps on Vyborg Road. However, these are some of the facts and observations that I've made over time. Did I say I lived on Vyborg Road as well? Vyborg Road is often used as a Solvang city bypass. The speed limit currently is 30 miles an hour, and it's often violated. I've seen speeders going 35, drivers going 35 to 45 miles an hour. Speed limit's 30. Big rigs have been seen going up from Alamo Pintado to Alisal, and then on to Fredericksburg Canyon or up Alisal Road down into the city. Radar enforcement is rarely executed. And I've often seen running of a stop sign that's at the corner of Alisal and Vyborg. Drivers just slow down a bit, but just drive right through. Couple of ideas for improvement. Post signs that say local traffic only, and that would help the residents. And local deliveries only, that would help the commercial folks that have to make deliveries in that area. Reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour. Increase periodic and radar enforcement. I know the city can't afford to have a full-time radar enforcement, but I think we should increase the random radar enforcement as time goes on here. And possibly consider a noise ordinance as traffic mitigation as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Johnson.
Hi, my name is Sharon Johnson, and I wasn't going to speak tonight. I'm here to help my neighbor, Dan Townsend, fight to get these berms put in on our street. My husband and I have been in front of the city council twice before trying to get the bumps on the street on Elm. I don't understand why you're talking sidewalks, because the city of Solvang put in sidewalks in front of my home, 10 years ago, all from the school, all the way across. They even pulled out my concrete that KJ Concrete had just put in 3 years prior to put it in. So we really need those speed bumps. There are a total of only 10 houses on the 1500 block of Elm Avenue. Of those, 5 of them have children. We have a lot of children that are coming from 5th Street area and other areas across the highway. I just wished you could see that we need those speed bumps. Thank you.
Sabine Overson.
Hi again. It's Sabine Overson, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I often walk or am on the road on Chalk Hill. It is on the way to the school. And it is that flashing light, slow down, it's just there to be ignored. I've seen it over and over and over again. I'm not the only one. I would like to recommend, I like all those fancy terms, getting it buffered. I think Matt Vanderlinden was talking something with the safety. I also have, what I really, really like on, 246 going towards Lompoc is in the middle on the yellow strip, and on the white side, there is, it is called a rumble strip. It makes the noise, I guess it's on the highways too, it makes the noise when you get off to the side to kind of waking up the people to get back on track again. I think that it would be very, very helpful to put on Chalk Hill. It also, if we widen that bike lane, that I hope that you would consider next time we do the slurry, would be really, really nice, because I've seen bikes on there, adults riding on the sidewalk, and I don't think we should have the freedom to ride on the bike on a reserved area where we can ride the bicycle. I also have a neighbor, an almost retired man. His wife is very concerned, so they actually had to sell his bike, and he loves biking. He doesn't feel safe in this town to ride the bicycle. And he lived in Buellton. And now he lives in Solvang. So if you could please consider, if you would narrow the road, if you drive on the road on Chalk Hill, you would see how much space is available. Look at the car in front of you, how wide, how much space is on the road. It is up and down the hill. It looks like a racetrack. I would love to drive there with no people, but it's very, very fast. People do drive more than 35 miles an hour, and it is on the way to school. So I do strongly, hopefully you will recommend to slow down to 25 miles an hour and making the road thinner and putting maybe those rumble strips that's in the ground when you pave it, when you slurry it. I guess a little bumper track thing. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Gold.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm a resident of Solvang, and I live on Vyborg Road. Our home is located in between Alma Batado and Alsal Road. Even in the 2 short years that I've lived on Vyborg Road, the traffic has become a serious issue. There are three concerns that I would like to bring to light. The first one is the amount of cars traveling on this road has certainly increased. What seems like what was mainly local neighboring traffic has now become the Vyborg Highway. With so much traffic from 246, people going through town, they have found a new way to commute through and taking a shorter route, shaving a few minutes off of their commute. The second one is the speed in which the cars are traveling. It's a bit reckless, and the word dangerous is an understatement. On this road, there are 2 speed indicators, one on Vyborg Road, which is a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and the other is on Alisal Road, which has a 25 speed limit. The people driving on these roads, with the exception of a few, simply drive right past the slow down signs and take them for total disregard. There have been accidents where neighbors' properties have been hit, and also as well as parked cars. There are 3 stop signs on this route. One of them happens to be right in front of my home. It's as if the drivers think that the signs are not even present. They're often ignored, and if the driver slows down, it's hardly a stop. Unfortunately, in my 2 years of living here, I've only seen one time where the areas were actually being patrolled and citations were given. Vyborg Road certainly needs to return to a safe road that our families and our properties can trust. Please consider my words. I understand that there has been a study done, so I appreciate that. Certainly anything that can be done, 3D drawings, rumble strips, reducing the stop sign would certainly be encouraged. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Taylor Ting, and he asked that I read his letter here since he went home sick. He's at 1892 Vyborg Road. And to all members of the Solvang City Council, this letter serves my family's full support for any and all proposed traffic initiatives along Friedensborg Canyon and Vyborg Road corridor of Sunshine Village. As a resident of 1892 Vyborg since 2006, we have witnessed a dramatic growth in traffic and speeding along Vyborg Road. In the past few years, this condition has escalated to a point where my family considered moving on account of our safety. In the past 2 years alone, the following has occurred. 50 feet of fence line was destroyed, driven through by a lady speeding. Our car was destroyed and considered a complete loss after being struck by a speeder. We witnessed a dog hit and killed by a speeder. We had our vehicles egged in retaliation after waving people to slow down. Aside from our family, many of our neighbors have been outwardly vocal about finding a remedy for this matter, speaking with the council on multiple occasions, and signing petitions for action. Recently, I proposed to the City Council the installation of traffic calming measures along Vyborg to alleviate the straight line speeding through this neighborhood. As a father of 2 young girls, 7 and 11, I appreciate your time and thought on this matter. I hope the city will pass and fund a meaningful measure to address it. Taylor Ting. And then we have no more further speaker slips unless anyone else would like to speak on this item. Hank Homburg.
Mayor, council members, again, I'd just like to reiterate, Buellton has a really effective traffic calming. It's called a motor cop, and he gives tickets, and it's $100,000 a year. So I know we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars with traffic calming issues, but until we get a speeding ticket situation enforced, my understanding is I think we had 132 tickets for the whole year, and Buellton issued 642 in the same year. So actually we only had 53, I'm sorry, I misspoke. So again, I would really hope you consider opening up the contract with the Sheriff's Department and having a dedicated motor officer. They're the only ones whose issued tickets count in court because they have calibrated radar detectors or LiDAR. The reason the officers here don't, or the one officer that we have in the city of Solvang doesn't issue tickets, is because they'll probably get kicked out because he doesn't have an effective way to detect the speed like a dedicated motor officer who is dedicated only to traffic enforcement. So I hope you look into it. We don't have to redo the wheel or remake the wheel. We can talk to the city of Buellton right next door and get all the pertinent information needed to get a motor officer here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No further public comment. We'll take this back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start?
Okay, I can't wait. It sounds to me Like, we have to solve this problem sooner rather than later. I think we have a consensus here, at least that's what I'm hearing. There's a consensus to do something. And maybe we need to consider a combination of things as opposed to any one thing. For example, I like the idea of rumble strips. It catches my attention. I don't know about these particular speeding guys. And I like Hank's idea about having the traffic officer being there at random times. I think there was another speaker who spoke to this idea as well. But that way, people will think twice about speeding through because they never know when that person's going to be there, that highway or the traffic patrol person. I'm not sure about the Trump Loy on the pavement. Sounds rather entertaining and interesting. I'll take your word for it, Matt. But I'd like to see something done before 2021, 22. Is there something we can do to speed this up? Yeah, I'm sorry. I do need to ask this question.
Sure. So, Councilman Dearness, if you're talking about Elm specifically, we could proceed with the speed humps if that's what you want to do, and then follow that with the sidewalk project in 2 years.
I actually am in favor of that personally. Thank you.
Robert?
I have to admit, I'm guilty of driving on Vyborg to get passed through town. I try to obey the speed limits and stop at the stop signs because people know who I am. But I can give you anecdotes, but I'm not going to. I think two things. I would like to do the strips. I would like to do the striping on Vyborg. I mean, is there any way to work out with Buellton to borrow a traffic cop for a couple of hours? Once or twice, or to somehow get somebody on Vyborg to issue a few tickets and wake a few people up. We went from 250,000 visitors in 1988. We have 1.5 million now. I bet you Vyborg is 99% local traffic that's driving on there, and we need to knock our fellow, Solvang folks in the head and say, come on, let's be respectful of all the neighborhoods that we do drive through, because nobody wants to be on Mission Drive because it's crowded. And we're a very popular town, and we're not suffering for it, of course, but it's causing us to do other routes. So I would like to do something sooner than later as far as putting the rumble strips on Vyborg, but is there any way we can do something with an officer to I mean, is that really expensive to get our radar gun and issue a few tickets and people will start talking about it? Because everybody talks about Buellton, the guy the police officer or the sheriff that sits in front of the hitching post.
Generally not favorably, by the way.
I know that, because that's, I don't know, that's a whole different story. I'm not going to shut up. Anyway, I would like to see some of the striping done on Vyborg. I would like to see some of the rumble strips. I'd like to look into seeing what we can do about possibly getting some assistance from the sheriff's department. And I want the speed humps on Elm Street. The residents want it. It's cheaper. Let's get something done. Thank you.
Daniel?
I would agree with the speed humps. I think if they went to the trouble of putting together the petition to put them on their road, then I would go ahead with those. And the other traffic mitigation proposals are fine. I'm not quite convinced of a traffic cop, or just because of it's going to cost a lot more than any of us think it's going to cost. That's my opinion. I don't think that cost is going away, and I just think it's going to be increased and increased. So.
And just to clarify, speed humps on Elm Street, is that
Correct.
what I'm hearing specific support for? Okay. Karen?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve the speed humps on Elm Avenue to be followed with the sidewalk improvement project and the crosswalks, along with the striping on Vyborg. All of the above suggested traffic calming measures.
So I believe that's generally staff recommendation with the addition of speed humps on Elm. Am I hearing that correctly? Okay. My only other concern was just about the timing. It's looking like, I think, Matt, did you speak something to, we're waiting for some kind of grant that's kind of holding things with regard to Vyborg, or?
No, the grant was in relation to Elm.
Oh,
and the
okay.
sidewalk.
Got it.
Yeah, so we could, if the city council.
And that grant was previously applied for?
No, we're working on the grant application right now.
Okay.
It's the Measure A North County Safe Routes to School program.
So what was the other grant that was denied? I believe it was on.
Oh, the ATP, the Active Transportation Program, twice we submitted an application for the same, sidewalk on Elm. Our ATP application included that sidewalk and some additional ones, but in that area. But yeah, so twice we've submitted to Caltrans for that grant, but we're denied.
So what are the odds? And I see. I will let. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't take it from the floor, but I will let you come up and speak. So with regard to that grant, what are the odds of us actually getting the grant with Elm Street?
I would say we've got probably, I would say it's a solid 50-50 chance that we'll get the grant. Basically, the North County Measure A Safe Routes to School grant program is limited to the City of Santa Maria, City of Guadalupe, City of Lompoc, City of Buellton, City of Solvang, and the County of Santa Barbara. And then schools can apply for the fund. The school district can apply if they team up with one of those agencies, but the Measure A funds were intended for use by those agencies. So basically, there's about $550,000 available. There are 6 agencies competing, and we would be asking for approximately $115,000, so only 20% of the total. And it's right across the street from the school. We have all of our solid good information from our ATP application that we're just going to drop it right into this Measure A grant application. So we feel, that we got a good chance.
Okay.
But it's,
But we could move forward
it's competitive.
but when is that grant going through? So when will we hear back?
We'll hear back from that in late spring.
Late spring.
2020. So in like 6 to 8 months.
Okay. But it wouldn't slow down anything on Vyborg?
No. And we could proceed with the traffic calming measures on Vyborg, and we could proceed with the speed humps right now on Elm if you'd like.
On Elm.
Both
Okay.
of those we could proceed right away.
Perfect. And then with regard to a question earlier about the sidewalk specifically that we'd be installing on Elm, where on Elm would that be?
Yeah, so it's a little bit on 5th Street and then on Elm. So right now, it'd be the east side of 5th Street from Mission Drive up to Elm. So right now, there's sidewalk from the corner of Mission to the alley there. But once you get north of the alley, it's just dirt. There's the curb and gutter and dirt. So there is kind of a dirt walkway around that corner property. And then once you get onto Elm Street, there's this dirt all the way down, and maybe one property has some little pavers or bricks or something, a little bit, but and then
on the other side, the whole thing's got sidewalk.
yeah, on the north side of Elm there is already sidewalk, yeah. But as you're probably aware, there's a lot of apartments off of 5th and Aarhus and down 5th and off of Oak and 5th, that whole area. So there's a lot of kids that go to school up 5th Street and then turn on Elm. And so right now they got to cross the street.
So I think her point, Matt, is that you could cross over and use the other side of the sidewalk. They're going to have to cross over Elm sometime. So I think what she's trying to say is you don't even need a sidewalk on this side of that road because you already have a sidewalk on the other side. They could just take the crosswalk across and take the sidewalk all the way to school.
Sure.
That's what she's trying to say.
Sure, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And that is true. However, they'd be going against traffic part of that way. But anyway, on 5th from the alley up to the Elm, they would be in the dirt, walking in that dirt section. And then, but there's no crosswalks there now because there's only the sidewalk on the north side. And so it would improve safety, and it is one of the top priorities that the city council had decided on for sidewalk improvements in the city because it is right across the street from the school, so.
Got it. Thank you. I'm sorry, so Karen, I'll just, would you mind repeating your motion?
Sure. My motion was to go ahead and approve the speed bumps, traffic calming on Elm Street, the street striping on Vyborg, that is per Matt's presentation, and then to continue with the sidewalk improvement and crosswalk improvement to follow the initial striping and speed bumps, having those go in first.
Would that include speed bumps on Elm today, sooner than later?
Yes.
Okay. And then I think that addresses most of it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
There's somebody in the audience who wants to speak. Do we have time for one more comment?
I'll entertain one.
Sorry for being a little late.
Please, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Council, you guys know I am Bill Rogers. As most of you know, I live at the stop sign at Alisal and Vyborg. So I wanted to address Dan's concern if we had a traffic cop there. Just being at home in the morning, late in the evening, a little bit in the weekend, my wife and I count about 10 people per week easily that run that stop sign, easily. So if there were a traffic cop there, there would be multiple citations, I do believe. So that could be a really quick deterrent. I understand Dan's concern of what would it cost. That'd come back real quick. And I think that would change things probably more than painting the stripes. I'm very much supportive of the striping of that Vyborg Road because of the amount of walkers, dog walkers in the morning and the evening, myself being one of those. But the number of people that run that stop sign is shocking. So
perfect.
That probably would work.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
So I think I'm generally okay with Karen's motion on there. We could also explore maybe giving some direction to staff to reach out to Buellton. We could always just investigate if they're interested in any form of cost sharing or something to randomize motor cop and Solvang. We could evaluate those options at a later date.
Sure. Staff can follow up with the Sheriff's Department on that.
Perfect. So is there anyone that would like to second?
I'll
Karen's?
second that.
Okay, it's been seconded.
Wait. Does that include the rumble strips? I want rumble strips. Okay, good.
It's Karen's motion to clarify. So if you have a question of her motion, then ask Karen to clarify.
Matt's proposal in the presentation did not include the rumble strips. It included the striping right away and the speed bumps, which I would like to take care of right away.
Okay.
So then it doesn't include the rumble strips. Your
does-
motion does not.
My motion does not include the rumble strips because that was not part of Matt's presentation.
Our recommendation, yeah.
Matt, I'd like to amend her motion then to include the rumble strips.
Well, now
It's not
that
cost
brings us
prohibitive.
back to starting a project over again that we could probably get done pretty quickly to help the safety of our community.
Yeah, I would suggest, we just went through this with Skip Mesa, and we implemented some traffic calming type techniques throughout the neighborhood. And since then, I haven't been receiving anywhere near the amount of complaints I've been getting before. So I'd be fine with Karen's motion, and then we can always revisit if we feel we need to take further steps. At that time, we can come back. Maybe staff would have heard back from Buellton with regard to, if we do anything with a motor cop, and we could evaluate that option as well later.
All right, so we are including the traffic cop.
No, it's not including. We're just asking for staff to investigate that option and come back with
Pursuant to having a traffic cop.
No. Staff.
It's a side note.
Yeah, it's a side note. Staff would go look at that option, talk to Buellton about it, and it's about some kind of cost sharing with Buellton to randomize a motor cop here in Solvang. It is not part of the motion. It's not action today, though. It's just staff direction to come back and give us that feedback if that's something that could be entertained.
All right, then I would amend my comment to include that staff would go and ask specifically about the cost sharing of a traffic officer to help bring the speed down, the violators.
Okay. That can be part of the motion or staff direction. So if Karen accepts that,
So
then
the staff direction, if there's a majority of you that's generally supportive of that, then staff can just go investigate.
what you're
that
asking for right
outside
now
of-
is already effectively done.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We asked for it, it's done.
Yeah.
Can we
Would you
vote?
like to second Karen's motion?
Then I will second it.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded.
Gee whiz.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Dearness,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes. With that, we will move on to item number 5, Solvang trolley and license renewal. Can I get a title readout and staff report?
Item 5, Solvang trolley license renewal. Hold a public hearing to consider the renewal of the horse-drawn conveyance license and the motorized trolley tours license for Solvang Trolley Company for a term of 1 year.
So the reason this report is really here, the trolley has been operating for a long time with the city of Solvang. The reason we bring this to the council for approval annually is because there is a code section in the municipal code that is attached to your report that requires staff to come back for this particular contract and to renew this permit.
Are we taking
Sorry.
questions yet?
Sorry, I'm just pulling this item up. I was expecting the staff report to be a little bit longer. All right, are there any questions of the staff report?
Yes.
Okay, Karen?
Yes, I still need a little more clarity as to what element it is that we need to have in front of us to approve this license. I mean, what makes us different from other businesses? What is it? Why?
You have a specific provision in the municipal code that requires this.
But what can you read that to me, please?
Sure, it's in the staff report. It's municipal code section 4-1-7.
I want the public to hear it too. That's what.
Oh, and if you could just read the page number at the very bottom.
Sure, it's at the bottom of blue page number 171.
So 171 of the packet is 417, issuance of license, term, and renewal, right?
Yes.
So again, you have a specific requirement in your municipal code that you annually review the license for animal-drawn conveyances.
Okay, I just really wanted the public to be aware of that so that our trolley business didn't feel singled out, that they are the only applicants that have to come in front of the council for this approval.
Are there any questions of the staff report? Seeing none, we'll go to public comment. Our first speaker is Andreas Piper.
Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, I'm here to wholeheartedly support the trolley. As most residents, most probably we hardly ever ride the trolley, but I have ridden it now about 7 times in the last year because I've had a lot of out-of-town visitors, and of course they've got kids, and the first thing they want to do is ride the trolley. And I really would like to compliment them on how well they do their tour. My daughter is an equine science major. She's always remarking on the excellent condition in which the horses are. So I think it's a very, very good asset for us. It's something that is so special. And I think we as residents sometimes, we're not forced to ride the trolley because we don't have guests from out of town. I think we forget about the asset they have. So on record, I think they do an excellent job, and they're just something that we need to be proud of, and like to thank them publicly for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Landon.
I'm Jenny. I drive the trolley. I'm one of the drivers. And I don't have the facts and figures or the numbers. But what I do have is a lot of blue sky. So I'm going to tell you about the blue sky. And why do people, you're probably, or maybe somebody in the audience is wondering why people ride the trolley. And a lot of them tell us that they love the big horses. They enjoy our tour guides. They want to experience a little history of Solvang, which we tell them. We talk about that with our tour guides. They want to experience, maybe they never experienced riding in any kind of a horse-drawn vehicle. They want to hear about our horses. When we're loading our trolley, I turn around and talk to the people because they have questions about the horses, how big their feet are, what do they eat, things like that. And I talk about that. I'm not the tour guide, but I talk with the people that come along too. A lot of the people are so enthused when we let them take their kids up to the front of the trolley and just touch the horses. Some kids have never seen a horse in person, and all of us are lucky that we live in this valley, and on our way to work or wherever we're going in the valley, we run by horse farms, and a lot of kids don't see that, and the parents appreciate that, to have their kids here. Kids from all over the world that live in big cities that just have never seen a horse in person. And there's a lot of grown-ups that say the same thing. But we direct people when they ride the trolley or don't even ride the trolley and they come by us like as if we were, the visitor center. They'll ask us, well, where's this or where can I get this? And we direct them. The trolley has a long history in Solvang, and I'm sure all of you, know about that history from the 60s and when it started. But these horses are so well loved by the Arona family here, the owners of the trolley, and I love these horses like crazy. If, they're not mine, but I feed them carrots every night, and these horses are very well taken care of. They get all the vet services they need, and they just have a lot of heart, and they love doing what they're doing, and these horses actually need a job. So that's why, they love to come to work. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but that's my part tonight, just the blue sky, the love of horses, and we really enjoy the people that come to Solvang too.
Thank you. Hazel Mortensen.
Good evening, Mayor Toussaint and Council. The beautiful horses that pull the honen are of great concern to me. The voiceless again need a voice. This city made rules concerning these horses, such as 95-degree temperatures and no more. When they should be rested in the shade. These rules are often ignored. In addition, the honen, by law, is only allowed to carry a limited amount of people. Myself and others have witnessed extra numbers of people riding the honen. I assume that if there were an accident, that their insurance would be null and void. When rules are ignored, it is time for fines. When any of the above rules are ignored, the owner should pay a $200 fine. In order to avoid an accident involving the honen in Solvang, a certified mechanic not related to the owner should be required to check the honen every 4 months. The mechanic should certify that it is in good repair before it is driven. I don't take animals abuse lightly, and neither should this council. There are many people upset that they did not know the horse issue was going to be discussed tonight. Lastly, I want the honen owner to know that the verbal abuse directed at me will no longer be tolerated from him, his wife, or his children. I now have a recorder on my phone, and I know when his children are harassing me. From now on, I'll let the police handle this. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll take this back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start?
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I give Councilmember Waite's question a more complete answer? 'Cause
Yeah.
I think it deserved a more complete answer than I provided. The reason why this particular use actually is addressed in the municipal code and requires an annual license or requires a license is because it's in the form of a franchise. So the city is actually allowing a business to use the city streets to operate as a business, unlike a more typical business. And so that's really what you're looking at here, is you're looking at a business that operates in your street, that has a parking space in your street where it collects its passengers, and where the city could have certainly control and potentially some responsibility or liability. And so that's why, again, I believe your municipal code was written to require this license.
I got a
Does that
question.
answer that question?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure the public was well aware of that, because as I said, I didn't want to single out this particular business without an explanation to the public as to why they have to have approval for their permit.
So in Santa Barbara, they have that big vehicle that goes into the harbor and whatnot. Is it the same type of thing because they're using city streets and whatnot? Yeah, the Land Shark.
I'm not familiar with the licensing for the Land Shark, but I'm going to guess that it does require, again, it's like a city franchise or license. And so they're using the public streets. In this case in particular, you're actually having people who are getting onto the conveyances in the public street. It parks
Correct.
in
So
front of
so
business.
the liability for the city is obviously higher because we're allowing this to happen, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I believe it's also pretty common in franchise agreements for sometimes there's some form of revenue that comes back to the city that sometimes the city holds its right to be able to do, such as I believe with waste management, we get a 4% ticket back on their billings.
That's also correct.
I said ticket.
Oh.
That's also correct. And the other thing that is very typical with a franchise is that you have only one provider or at least a limited number of providers.
Got it.
So you wouldn't, for example, have typically a number of competing trolley operators driving around your streets.
So it's the exclusivity.
That's interesting because, if I may, the farmer's market goes through the planning department for a conditional use permit, which is basically using city streets versus the trolley. But they're kind of the same then. If they're using city streets for a business venture, just thought it's interesting.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Clark, you point out there are different ways that the city addresses different uses within its streets, and this one happens to, again, have its own municipal code section.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay.
I've got a question. How did we end the discussion with respect to providing shade for the horses? What was the final conclusion on that matter?
So my recollection was that took place approximately 2 years ago, because I believe by the time we ended that item, part of the motion was to issue a 2-year license versus a 1-year, so that we're not having this discussion, around the clock every year. The issue with regard to the shade structure was that by the time we went out and found cost for it, the costs were pretty high for a small business, and there would also be the issue of there's sensitivities around who pays for it. There's also issues with regard to how a business of that size would even be able to obtain a bank loan to pay for that on a business that is predicated around a 1-year license renewal. They could spend a lot of money in a year and not have a license the next year to operate. So I don't know what bank would want to make a loan on that, but those are some of the issues that.
So then it was left inconclusive?
The shade structure item eventually got dropped, yes.
So it wasn't required by the council. Do we want to consider that? And if we do, where would we put it? And who would pay for it?
So it's all been discussed. There is a staff report that could be pulled up on that. I don't know how much could be discussed about that tonight with the item that we currently,
that's the problem.
how it is noticed.
I felt that it should have been included in this if we're going to talk about this seriously. And secondly, as you point out correctly, who's going to make a loan to this franchise monopoly if their contract is only a year-to-year contract? I don't see the city paying for that shade structure. I don't think it makes sense.
Well, that's not part of the issue, though. That's not what we're discussing tonight.
Well, what I'd like to see happen is that we bring this back for a more full discussion. In the meantime, I think that we can give them an extension on their license until we have time to discuss this more fully. I think that this probably should be put out to RFP so that we can consider how do we help them if this is truly something that Solvang needs and wants for tourist purposes. Great, then how do we help them to take care of the horses and that kind of thing? At this point, I'd like to do more research into this. For example, is this something that tourists are dying to get on? Where's the data on this? Are you getting more traffic on this particular vehicle or not? And then there's a whole issue about liability. So I think this, to me, I feel like this is kind of premature to go ahead and adopt unless we spend a little more time doing some research on this.
I mean, I'll have to say that the things that I believe I'm aware of is it does appear to be an asset to a tourism asset to the downtown zone. It's, I believe, also one of the most photographed items in the city of Solvang. So there is a value.
Here's a good example. This is a wonderful example of I guess I've never seen this. Do you guys actually use this one?
Yeah.
Sometimes?
Yeah. I am happy to come up to answer any questions by the City Council.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I'll give you guys some time to so whatever you need. It's your item, so whoever would like to speak to that, we'll do that in a second. But I think it's best if we raise some of these concerns first, and then you can come up and talk.
All right, so I'm just suggesting that maybe there's an alternative to the old Honens that we're discussing here. I actually do like the newer models, or this particular model, or even an electric vehicle like they do in Santa Barbara. So I'd like to see perhaps an alternative to the Honen. I don't mind the horses, but at the same time, I've noticed as I walk down the streets, the trolley will hold back anywhere from 2 to 5 cars as it kind of meanders through town, and on a busy day, that's a real problem. So from my standpoint, I'd like to revisit this whole idea of a trolley and see if we can't find a better solution or set of solutions for this.
Okay. Are there any other concerns or anything? Otherwise, I'd like to have the trolley business come up and speak to this.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yeah.
just express a couple of concerns? One,
Yes.
as I understand, the current license expired 3 months ago. So I would urge you to take some action tonight.
Okay.
As I also understand, and maybe I missed this, but the last time that this license was renewed, the council just decided to renew it for 2 years. That's not actually allowed by your ordinance, and it's something I'm finding, again, on the catching up.
We are aware of several inconsistencies with our prior legal advice. Thank you for pointing out even more.
I would just
but
urge you.
we will
if you
address
wanna
that tonight.
Just do stuff like that.
Yeah.
It would be good to amend the ordinance so that you can just do stuff like that. And I'm not questioning this council at all. I understand that's something that happened in 2017.
That's what you're here for. So it seems to me like I'm hearing concerns about updated trolley, maybe a trolley options, temperature at which the horses are working, as well as some form of shade structure for the horses. With that, I would like to grant you guys some time to come up and speak, and maybe you can address some of these things here.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff of the City of Solvang. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Claudia Orona. Me and my family, we have been working in collaboration with the City of Solvang to continue the tradition of the Solvang trolley since August of 2007. Back then, we started by completely revamping the original Honen, which has been in circulation since 1963 as a motorized vehicle and as a horse-drawn trolley since 1973. We started with 2 horses. Today we house about 9 horses, and we've got 3 conveyances that we can use. The first is the Honen, which is the original Solvang trolley. The Hans Rasmussen, named after the Solvang trolley founder, that was custom built for the streets of Solvang in 2012, and the carriage that Councilmember Journes mentioned, which is an alternative that seats 12 people. It is shown in that picture carrying around the Santa Barbara Rebels when we hosted a caroling event in Christmas years past. So we are happy to work with horses that come from all over the nation, most of them from rescue operations or people that were no longer able to afford them or that were rescued from the kill pen. We are able to house them. They work between 1 and 2 days a week, and we keep them in our stables until they retire. And concerning the shade issue, we have talked to some fellow business owners in town, and First Street Leather and the gallery, Thomas Kinke, that is there, they are happy to help us with parking space so that we can park the trolley under the shade when the temperature is going to be 85 or more degrees. And alternatively, we've been using the back ways to rest the horses under the shade when shade on the main Copenhagen Drive is not available. However, that is a solution that is inexpensive, it's practical, and both neighboring business owners and ourselves are happy to implement. I am happy to answer any more questions. We're very much looking forward to continue to working with the city of Solvang. We have many projects underway. We're happy to collaborate with the Jewel Fest, Danish Days, and other organizations that we have worked with in the past. We have Solvang theme and Solvang trolley fairy tale book that we are collaborating with the children author Mary Brodsky that should be completed within the next couple of years. So yeah, we would love to keep calling Solvang our home.
Are there any questions of the council?
I have one question. Do you get a lot of tourists that come back and say, we went on the trolley the last time we were here?
Oh, absolutely. If I can have Lorena show us our, these are our guest books right here, and they have thousands and thousands of...
That's all I just wanted to know.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of people that have ridden the trolley and said how much they have loved it. Often these families come back when the children are all grown up with children of their own, saying we did this before.
That's
We'd love
perfect.
to do it again.
That's all I want. I never knew that, so I
yeah,
just didn't know
absolutely.
if it was a one-off thing or people like to do it again and again.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, my name is Lorena. Good night. So my passion really in this town is serve the tourists. A lot of people know me, so I spend 6 days a week in my ice cream shop just helping my tourists, which are lovely. So my passion also is the horses, the 9 horses we have. And one day my dream is to have a rescue place for draft horses. It's a big issue about the kill pens, and it really hurts because these horses really bring a lot of good things for a lot of people. A lot of people make a living from these horses. We have Samuel with this, he make a living to be a tour guide. So we don't make a living from the horses. We have another jobs. My son, he works in Santa Barbara as a mechanic 5 days a week. Clau, she works in the bakery. I work in the ice cream parlor, and my husband also works in the ice cream parlor too. So we don't abuse the horses to make a living. We are not just scratching our tummies, sitting, watching TV, because everybody have another jobs. The horses are very expensive to support, very expensive. So they have the bills of the bed really are high. So when we started the trolley 11 years ago, the bale of hay was $4. Right now is $22 a bale. And we have 9 horses and 2 quarter horses, and everybody say stop to rescue. But it's a passion. I really have a dream someday to have a rescue, and a lot of people know that. I know a lot of people is concerned about the line of this kind of business is really very thin. You have to have heart to have this kind of business, because you can abuse the horses just looking on the money, or you can be kind and love them. And that's our case. We already retired 3 horses, and we have already 1. We put to sleep to Rita. She was the original horse with Claire. Claire just had a surgery. She stepped in a hole on right now these animals, what is the name of those? They make holes everywhere. So we have a big, huge pasture where they spend most of the time. And Claire, she stepped in one of them, and she has this kind of treatment. What's the name? Stem cells. Yes. And we don't care. So Andy, he has a cancer in the eye. He's retired. And we put Andy in the Alamo Pintado clinic, and we pay. Well, the bill was $6,000, but the doctors just charged $3,000. So because he loves the horses. To bring this joy to town is no money for us. I promise you, it's no money. It's the passion we have for the horses. It's the passion we have to serve. Because also my ice cream is very cheap. I mean, you compare with another business. But I just want to let you know, it's a lot of people that are jealous, because I don't see any abuse in those beautiful horses. If people know about abuse, in this case, they really, I don't know what because like these 2 stickers, those are the stickers the kill pen put on the horses, those ones. You can look online, they call the little yellow sticker. We have 2, and unfortunately, we lost 1. They delivered the horse in the door of our house, dead. Because they changed. We have so many things behind this company, you don't have idea. So we rescue Merry and Christmas, and we named them this because they came in Christmas Eve. Christmas Day, Merry Still. And I hope so one day I can have more of those stickers. I hope so. So because if you look online and look about milk stands, drafts, thoroughbreds, are just sending to the kill pen every single day. I don't know what people want. We don't going to send these horses to auction. We don't going to send these horses to any kill pen. They're going to be with us. And we need to support them. And they are very expensive. So everybody's welcome to come to the house and see what the way the horses live. It's not about money. It's about a passion. And I think it's not too many business like us, our business. Because all the business like money, but they don't have passion also for the things they are doing. Also, I have my little museum. So I look all the time on eBay. This is a towel from the 70s. This is the iconos of Solvang. Here's the trolley with Gringo and a snowman. When Mr. Rasmussen have the trolley, okay? So, I'm sorry. So, this is a picture when Nielsen's have the trolley and they deliver the groceries around the town. It's the honing. I have a little, this is from the 60s. It's a little spoon. This spoon have the troll in there. I hope so one day we have those souvenirs. I have a letter from people. I have a lot of letters they send to us after they ride the trolley. They say thank you for the birthday, or say thank you for the anniversary. I have this little pen from the 60s. You can see the trolley come and back and forth, back and forth. So I have my little museum, and I have more things, but I didn't bring all them. I know this is going to happen. I know this lady is a liar. I know she, I don't know.
I'm sorry, but I mean to cut you off at the
Well,
personal.
I'm sorry.
I have to, we have to get through
it's
this.
okay. I'm so sorry, but
Okay.
it's because it's passion. It's not another.
It's our job up here to see through
I know.
that. So you've had your chance to talk about those items. Let's try to keep things as positive
Okay.
possible and see what we can do here. Okay?
Okay. So well, that's what I know. My English is not too good, but that's what I wanna say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now can I ask my question?
What's your question, Chris?
So where are you shading the horses?
Right now, we are shading them on Molly Way when we are in town and it's too hot. But right now, if the temperature is projected to be too hot to work, then we just don't come into town.
Where's Molly Way?
Molly Way is right behind the leather shop. Yeah, right on the corner of 2nd Street.
So between the Theater Fest.
Right.
Okay, right. So basically it's the alley, right. I've seen other wagons do that, like the Carlsbad wagon. I'm comfortable with that idea. Do you have any records in terms of data with respect to the number of people that use the trolley on a month-to-month?
Yes. Yes, we keep a travel log of every single day that includes the number of passengers and the temperature and anything that might have happened during the day. We did not bring them all, but in average, on a weekend, we will have anywhere from 80 to 150 riders on any given trolley. So that amounts to anywhere to 160 to maybe 300 passengers per day. On the weekends, we will be having anywhere from 30 to 80 riders, depending.
Can you keep track of that and pass it to the city?
I would love to bring all of my travel logs from the last 12 years, yes.
No, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm trying to get a sense of is, I appreciate the fact that people like what you provide. It's a wonderful service. I'm trying to support you, okay? But I think it would be helpful if you had some data as to who rides, how many people ride it, right, on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
You do have that information. I suggest that you put that into some kind of a data spreadsheet. It's very simple to do.
All right.
And then pass that to the city, because we want to see, A, is it a growing business, right? And B, the reason why I was asking the questions earlier was I'm considering the idea, how do we make, if this is truly a wonderful business, then how do we make more of it? How do we help you guys? One of the discussions that the mayor and I had was a year-to-year contract doesn't allow you to really borrow money to invest in this particular business.
Right.
If we were to extend this for a multi-year contract, maybe then you could upgrade something like the Honan and turn it into something more attractive like this, which I really think is very attractive. I don't know how the tourists feel about this particular wagon. Maybe it's less comfortable, but I like it. I think it's very appealing with respect to the Solvang brand. So anything that can help enhance the Solvang brand. I'm not particularly fond of the Honan. I think it kind of looks 1960-ish, like when it was built. But if we could help you in terms of extending the contract so that you could borrow money and invest in your Honan and things like this, that would be an interesting idea, right? So going back to what our city attorney has suggested, we have a problem because your contract has expired and we need to extend it. Now, I'm suggesting that we extend it, say, to January 30th, maybe even to February, while we give some more thought to this and how do we look at this business as it helps Solvang's tourism.
Okay. Karen?
I feel very strongly that my fellow council member here has overstepped his boundaries and assuming that we have to get statistics from a business. We are not asking this of other business in town. We are simply sitting here to decide if we are going to issue the business license for the Solvang trolley. They are well aware of the issues of the shade. It's come up before from other councils, and we had looked for solutions for this. So the horses are their property. They care for their horses. We don't own their horses. That's their responsibility. I understand our city's liability in certain respects, but I am in no way even going to go close to asking them for numbers of productivity at this time for an operating business in the city of Solvang, because we don't require that of other businesses.
The other businesses are not monopolies that we grant. They have a unique license, a monopoly.
Can we stay away from monopoly? This is a franchise business.
It is
If
a
you want to
monopoly.
relate them to other franchise businesses,
If you want to put this out to RFP and
Chris.
have multiple trolleys, then okay, let's do that.
Okay, I'm just asking you, please stop using the word monopoly and just.
What would you like
it's
to
a
use?
franchise. I think that was very clear.
All right.
Chip, is this a franchise business?
This
It's
is a very
franchise business.
unique franchise. It's the only one of its kind in Solvang. Yes, there is no other trolley service, is there, that I'm aware of?
No.
No, that's not a trolley. Jesus Christ.
Hey.
So what I'd like to do is make the motion that we extend this license until, say, January 30th, and give the council and our staff more time to present some options to help them and help the city figure out what to do with this. Because if this is a growing business, I think we should look into this and supporting this. If it's not, then we have a different problem.
I don't think we have a problem at all. My problem right now is listening to your comments, which are way out of line. And you are basically singling out a business, and that is not what is the purpose at this point for this particular business.
Okay.
We are simply trying to reissue their license to operate.
Robert?
Well, there's a
Your
motion
speaker.
on the-
We're still in discussion, and Daniel has not
No, I
spoken,
know
so.
that. There was a motion made. I'm just blown away at how we can draw everything out so incredibly long. This is a two-item question. Should we renew this for 1 year? That's my opinion.
That's why last time I made a motion to push it for 2 years because of this issue.
We can't
so.
do that.
And we still can do that, but it's going to require a little more legwork to do it properly. Daniel?
I actually don't have any problem with what Chris is saying. I don't think he's been insulting at all. I think he's looking at the future of Solvang and where this business is going. I also have no problem with extending the contract all the way through June, and then looking at possible aspects of, as we look at marketing for Solvang and branding for Solvang, to revisit this item with this family involved in that option and seeing what we can do, again, to enhance the business. It's not that we want to get rid of the business. So I don't see it as such a bad thing to discuss. This is actually a positive thing for both them and the city. So I would definitely move to extend it all the way through June for the rest of the year, and then it gives us time to look at the marketing aspects of Solvang and talk about it. There's
Right.
no reason why we can't talk about it.
And I have no idea, and that was very well said. I just had an issue with how it was being said. But there are issues here with that, legitimately could be looked at. We could look at trying to make improvements so that it addresses some of the concerns that that have been brought to the council's attention. And there are processes for doing that. I believe we already are 3 months past the date at which the license expired. Am I understanding that correctly? So I think we need to do something tonight. One of the things that could be done is we could give a 6-month extension on the current one. Would that be within our purview?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you may extend it for any length of time up to 1 year, just not longer than a year.
Without changing the ordinance.
And I'd also note there are already at least a few things in your municipal code that definitely need updating. So we could add this to the list of things to look at in the next 6 months for update.
Okay. So I'm okay with exploring some other items while we temporarily push out or extend the current license for up to 6 months. And at that point in time, if we find some better mutually agreeable options, then maybe we look at a multi-year type item. I don't think anyone likes coming and doing this once a year, so I don't like to put you guys through it either. That was kind of the intent of why I pushed for a 2-year before. But if the council consensus is to do something like that, then that's what I would suggest. Are there any motions on the floor?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to grant them their business license to continue operating. That's the agenda item.
I would second that motion.
Okay.
For how long?
Yeah,
That's the question.
I think that's the question.
Well, they're 3
Right.
months overdue, so it's 1 year, so
Right.
minus 3 months, so it's a 9-month contract. I mean, I don't mind doing a stipulation that we look at other opportunities, analyzation of the business as a mutual thing, I think is great. But as far as what's on the agenda tonight, we're talking about extending a contract, and that's what I'm seconding.
If you're looking at items for addressing shade structures, temperatures, operating conditions, things like that, then you would, you would extend the license out while doing those in parallel with the ability to come back and address, those items at a later date.
Well, we have a motion, I think, in a second, but is that what I heard?
It dies, okay, I'm just trying to answer the questions that are on the floor, so that's all.
Did it die?
No,
Karen,
there's
you
a
made the
motion and
motion.
a second.
No, there's a
I
second.
seconded it.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, may I just ask for clarification? I don't believe that the maker of the motion gave a date, and I think the seconder of the motion did give a date. So I would just ask that the maker of the motion
okay.
accept that it be to June 30th, if that was the.
And at any point in time, someone could, ask for an amendment or a substitute motion or a new motion.
I would like to amend the motion to go ahead and extend it to June 30th, which was the original contract termination date. And in the meantime, I would like to ask staff to look into some of the things that we discussed tonight, and how we might be able to work with the trolley service and see if we can't make it a better service. Maybe that includes or it requires extending their contract on a multi-year basis, and that goes back to what our city attorney was saying, that we need to amend the municipal code for that. I know it's a bit of a lengthy motion, or amendment rather, but I'd like to go with that. I'd like to amend the motion on the floor.
It would probably be cleaner if you just made a new motion at this point.
Okay, then I'll make a new motion.
Okay.
I move that we go ahead and extend the contract until June 30th, that during that time, the city attorney look into fixing or resolving the problem with the municipal code so that we could potentially extend their contract to a multi-year contract. I'd like to ask staff to look into the business model and see what we can do to either expand it or simply enhance it.
I just have such a very difficult time with you even presuming that you would know how to run someone else's business.
I don't
like to
think
leave
that's
that out of it.
I don't think that's what Chris is presuming at all. I
That's
think
kind of
he's
what I'm getting from him.
asking about ideas around dealing with the concerns around shade or operating conditions.
I think we just need to make the motion relevant to the time frame in which we want to extend their license. And they're well aware of any other issues that are involved having to do with shading and care of the animals. That should be a completely separate item.
Yeah, I mean, that might be, just make the motion to extend the contract through June 30th, and we can discuss all these other aspects. If we want, we can bring it back and discuss it. We can discuss changing the code and all those things.
Which I believe is what Chris was doing by giving staff direction to do that. So he's giving them their extension. Am I understanding that correctly?
Mr. Mayor, I may be lost, but you had a motion and a second. I think that you would now need the maker of the motion to accept the changes or take some action on the motion and second. I'm going to say actually, and I think that consistent with your practice, I think that your staff has probably gotten direction, if you all concur that that is direction to your staff, to come back at some point in the future with other recommendations, including a change to the ordinance, which might allow you then to consider a longer time period.
Okay.
But I think you need to take action on the motion that's on the floor.
Okay. So I believe that was the nature of it. I'm sorry if my tracking is the best because I do have a cold right now, but I'm trying to keep up with this.
So would my motion be an amendment to Mr. Clark's motion because he was the second?
No, your motion would be an amendment to Councilmember Waite's motion that would need to be accepted by Councilmember Waite and the seconder, Councilmember Clark.
Okay.
Karen?
Okay, so as long as the extension or the immediate granting of their business license through June,
Correct.
because we are 3 months behind, is not put on hold or is not pending any direction that we've given to staff. I am fine with looking into extending looking into our ordinance to extending the time frame in which we can issue a license.
So I believe all that to be the will of what Chris's amendment was. Is that accepted?
Yes, but I don't want their license held up because he wants some sort
No,
of
that's
shade
not.
structure.
It's not going to get held up at all.
It's not held up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
It's been
fine.
accepted. Robert, do you accept that?
Yes.
Okay.
Roll call.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Dearness,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes. And with that, we'll call a quick 5-minute bathroom break and return for item number 6.
Thank you very much.
We'll start with item number 6, approval of new special event, Fall Festival. Could I get a staff report?
So, Fungo Events has submitted an application to the city to hold a new event proposed for November 16 and 17 of this year, 2019. It's proposed to be a free, family-friendly event with live music, kids zone, food and retail vendors, and beer gardens. It is a new form of event proposed as a partnership. So as opposed to asking just for a grant, this particular vendor is asking for the city to front $50,000 to hold the event. After they hold the event, out of their revenues, they would pay the city back $25,000 of that, with the assumption that the city would be made whole from the added tourism and indirect revenues from TOT and sales tax. One item to mention that in your staff report, there is a checklist of items that the event holder will have to complete before their permit is issued for the event. That includes working with other jurisdictions like Caltrans, ABC license, etc. So it would be on that vendor if the council decides to move forward with this event to make those things happen so that the event actually happens on November 16th and 17th of this year.
Okay. Are there any questions of the staff report?
Mr. Mayor, I need to excuse myself with respect to conflict of interest.
Okay. Are there any questions of the staff report? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm trying to, after reading all this, I'm trying to refresh my memory that for some reason I thought the seed money for this was going to be $25,000, but I could.
So the way that the way that it reads is a $50,000 for seed money with a $25,000 return back. Am I correct?
That's correct. My understanding is that
Okay,
they're
so-
asking for 50 upfront, they return 25. So cash-wise, direct cash-wise, it's the city is basically giving $25,000 with the rest being recouped in indirect revenue from TOT and sales tax.
All right, thank you.
With that, I'll take this for public comment. I have one speaker slip. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. If you guys want to present first, and then I'll go to public comment.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Toussaint and the council. My name is Andres, and I'm with Fuego Events. I'm also here with my business partner, Michael Van Stry, who's sitting in the seat as well. So we're proposing Solvang Fall Festival. It's a 2-day event, family-friendly, free. Wouldn't cost anything for anybody to come join us for that weekend. There will be a tasting event on Saturday from 11 to 3. Should someone choose to want to take part of that tasting, it'll be a ticket sold online or at Solvang Park. Solvang Park will have craft beer and wine tastings with tickets sold. We'll be inviting 15 independently owned craft breweries to be joining us at Solvang Park for the tasting from 11 to 3, along with local wineries. There'll be a competition for best food, wine, and craft beer with digital voting from a company called Vote Foodie Fest, who does this all over the nation, including on some of the events that we've done in the past, including Bealton Brew Fest and the Bealton Wine and Chili Festival. Restaurateurs will offer fall-themed foods, showcasing their culinary arts, enticing guests to visit their restaurants. We'll have live music at Solvang Park from 11 to 10 p.m. on Saturday, as well as 11 to 6 on Saturday. And all vendors' fees will be waived if you are a Solvang business owner. So if you have a business in Solvang, a nonprofit group based out of Solvang, we will allow you guys to have a 10 by 10 space at the event at no cost. Parking lot number 2 will be what we call our Kids Zone and Carnival. It will be a full carnival with rides that you see at any carnival that you've ever been to, along with games and food vendors. We'll have general retail and arts and crafts vendors, live music, including what we're calling Battle of the Teenage Bands. We've already reached out to a company who has access to multiple teenage bands that will be competing for a cash prize that will be given out on Sunday. and that'll be on a stage that's going to be over on Copenhagen Drive. It will be a professional stage with full truss, just like you would see at a big concert. And that music will be Saturday 11 to 10, and then Sunday 11 to 6. We'll also have a beer garden, or beer and wine garden, in 2 separate other locations located where we'd like to block off for Solvang Fall Festival. It'll be centralized at Solvang Park and the immediate area, which is First Street, Copenhagen Drive, and the number 2 parking lot. All weekend, we would like to close off where First Street meets at Mission, also where First Street meets at Copenhagen Drive, and then from Copenhagen Drive down to 2nd Street is what we would like to close off for the entire weekend. And that's where we'll have our local retail vendors, restaurants, local nonprofits in either a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 20 space. I know sometimes some of the business owners don't like the infringement on closing down the street. So what we're going to propose is that we put the 10 by 10 tents in the middle of the street, therefore none of the storefronts are covered, and actually are going to be seen a lot easier by the guests who are going to be strolling down First Street or Copenhagen Drive. During the entirety of the day, we'll encourage local restaurants to sell menu items that are fall themed and featured on their menus, or something that guests will try to again inside of their restaurants. After the tasting is over at 3 p.m. on Saturday, we'll continue to operate out of Solvang Park in 2 additional craft beer and wine gardens until 10 p.m. on Saturday, as well as on Sunday from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. To increase the volume of guests walking through Solvang and visiting local businesses, we would like to apply for an ABC permit that would allow guests that are over 21 to be able to drink alcoholic beverages in the downtown area, specifically around Solvang Park, so on First Street and Copenhagen Drive. I did put in a call to the ABC department in San Luis Obispo and kind of gave them a rundown on this event. And he told me that as long as we have barriers at the closing points to where we're blocking off the road, as well as physical barriers, which count as buildings, that he sees no problem with giving us access to an ABC permit that includes something like this. Also, we will have stages for live music, both at Solvang Park and Copenhagen Drive that I mentioned. Both of them will be from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday, and on Sunday from 11 to 6 p.m. The carnival, like I said, is going to be a complete carnival from 11 to 10 p.m. on Saturday and 11 to 6 p.m. on Sunday. We'll be marketing this event through social media, print, and radio. The focus will be on California visitors of all ages. Families, we'd also like to ensure that residents from Solvang and the San Ynez Valley join us in the festivities and bring their family and friends to this family-free event that will happen. I know security is kind of a big thing with these open-air events. We work with a company who has already secured fiestas in Santa Barbara, as well as the Avocado Festival in Carpinteria. So they've been doing these open-air events, so they already will have a security plan that will include range of contingencies and potential threats. Also ensure that guests do not bring alcohol inside or outside the allowed ABC permit zone. We work with a janitorial service company that will be there all weekend long to ensure that we leave Solvang as clean as when we arrived. We'll be bringing in porta potties and additional trash cans, and we'll be supplied for the weekend and kept it clean for the entire time, including bringing in a 40-yarder of our own. We like to work with the City of Solvang to sponsor a 50-50 partnership, something that's never been presented as far as we know, where we would ask for $50,000 up front for costs that are not limited to marketing event expenses such as staffing, permits, security rentals, restrooms, fencing, tables, entertainment, janitorial services, and other items. In Fuego Events will keep all revenue, a cost recovery of $25,000 at the $50,000 sponsorship will go back to the City of Solvang. And general tourism, TOT taxes, sales tax, and return visitors is going to be our aiming point for everybody that comes to join us. We're looking to create a low-risk event for the City of Solvang as well as in Fuego Events. We will also be donating a portion of the proceeds to a nonprofit. We still haven't chosen the nonprofit, but we do have one in mind that we'd really like to work with. We just need to reach out and make sure that it's okay with them and that they would like to do that. We'll also allow any nonprofits that are in Solvang to join us for free and raise funds for their nonprofits on site. Our company, In Fuego Events, has been working with cities, nonprofit groups, chambers, and visitors bureaus for the past 8 years. We work hand in hand with the Buellton Chamber of Commerce and Discover Buellton for the Buellton Wine and Chili Festival and the Buellton Brew Fest. We've helped them increase their profit for both of those events, as well as resurrect the Buellton Wine and Chili Festival 3 years ago. We've also been hired to help manage the Taste of the San Ynez Valley that's going to be coming up. It's a 4-day event that will take place October 17th through October 20th in the communities of Buellton, Ballard, Solvang, Los Alamos, Los Olivos, and San Ynez. We will be managing 9 main events in 4 days. Concurrently, we'll also be managing the Sideways Fest that's going to be hosted by the Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance on the exact same weekend. So we'll have a 3-day event for them with 3 days on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And that's going to be obviously our largest event that we've ever done, where we're going to basically have 12 events over the course of 4 days in 6 cities. We also manage Surf and Suds beer festivals, which have been voted the top 10 beer festival in the United States for the past 6 years. Central Coast Craft Beer Festival, where we work hand in hand with the city of Atascadero and the Central Coast Brewers Guild. Buckles and Brews Invitational, Brew Year's Eve, both who we work with the Kiwanis Club of Santa Barbara with. Santa Barbara Beer Festival, which is the Santa Barbara Rugby Association and Illings Park Foundation. And also the Dancing in the Streets Drink Zone, which again, we worked with the city of Atascadero and the Central Coast Brewers Guild. And that's all that we have today. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, my only thing, and I actually don't have a problem if we were just to sponsor something for $25,000. Now, we got a lot of heat from some residents when we sponsored a bike race that was for a for-profit. Because it's an event and it highlights the city. So I get that. I get both sides of the argument. I would actually, my first thing was like, okay, how do I explain to the residents that are upset that we're spending $25,000? But after listening to you and actually after talking to somebody that I respect very much, Kathy Vreeland in Buellton, and she speaks extremely highly of you guys. That now I'm almost to the point where I wouldn't mind even just, if somebody came to me and said we wanted to spend $25,000 to do this, I think it'd be a good spending of city dollars, because it's a whole thing for all the residents could come in and get involved. So I think it's a good idea.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I was wondering, so this is slotted to be on a Friday and Saturday and Sunday, correct?
Saturday, Sunday, yes.
Have you guys thought about in the future possibly moving this? Because the biggest question everyone has is, we don't need it on the weekends. We don't need it on the weekends. I'm sure you guys have already heard
Yes.
that. Has there anybody thought to in the future, possibly if it's a success, moving it to get people to stay Sunday night or possibly like a Thursday night, or have you guys thought about that?
So that was the main discussion in the beginning when we started. Andreas and I have been working together, and he's invited me to several events over the last 8 years. Yeah. And so we talked a lot about something that'd be fun for Solvang, right. And that's why I reached out to Andreas and asked if he'd help put this on here. Mm-hmm. Basically, the whole focus is to bring more business. So eventually, having people Sunday night, so Saturday, Sunday night, right. And then reaching out to hotels and other restaurants or tap rooms or wineries to offer something on that Monday night or Monday day, so that it's half off a hotel room or dinner for 2 for the price of 1. So that on that third day, you're getting business that you generally wouldn't get. Right. So those people stay through the next day, and then potentially you can turn that into a 4-day package or something working together. But that's ultimately the goal, to increase, TOT, sales tax, visitor, return visitors, and tourism.
Yeah, and speaking to that too, so the Buellton Wine and Chili Festival traditionally was a Saturday event 3 years ago.
Yeah.
One of the main things that they wanted to do was also get some Sunday night stays, so they changed it to Sunday 2 years ago. And I was super hesitant about it just because traditionally Saturdays are a much better day to have an event. So we did it 2 years ago, and we actually sold more tickets than we did on Saturday. And what it did was actually created a lot more stays for it was Saturday, Sunday stay, right. Or even a Friday, Saturday, Sunday stay, depending on where they stayed. So I think one way to do that possibly is to create this event to stay longer on Sunday night, as opposed to closing it down at 6 o'clock on Sunday. You can move it to a 10 o'clock stop or 9 o'clock, where people, I've been doing this all day, I've been here all day, I might as well just stay one more night. So that's something that we can always do in the future as well.
Great, yeah, I think that's one of the big concerns of the businesses. The other thing, you were talking about having these tents in the middle of the roads. Is that also open to retail stores to put out their retail and everything right
Anybody who owns a business in Solvang, whether it's retail, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's a karate studio, whether it's food, restaurant, they will have access to a free 10 by 10 space. And then we put them back to back, what we call pods, which kind of creates, there'll be about a pod of 16, so 8 on one side, 8 on the other side. It creates a nice kind of walking area where you want to go see what's on both sides, so you can see what's on both sides of the street. But it'll be available for anybody. So, like I said, even the guy who has a karate studio, he wants to come out and try to get some memberships or raise some funds by doing a raffle or playing a game to win a prize. Any of that's going to be, we're going to have everybody allowed.
Great.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Karen?
So what charity were you looking at donating to?
I believe it said United Way in the.
Solving music.
Oh, Sam. Solving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solving, which
Yeah.
I love. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was actually Steve who came up with that idea. He knew that it's a nonprofit group that's trying to raise money to keep some music classes. It was basically all the arts at local Solvang schools. We thought it'd be a great fit considering we're doing a kid zone and we're going to have a second stage. It's going to have all the kids, it's where it's going to be a teen band thing. So we figured they might be a great person to kind of team up with so that we could donate some money to them, as well as help ask them if they want to be judges for the teen Battle of the Teens as well.
Can I add that my son went through Sam, and went through Sam at Solvang School, and he's now playing the trumpet with the symphony in Santa Barbara, and through his college. So it's pretty cool. I love Sam. Thank you.
So the idea behind this event is the benefit of the community. That's ultimately the idea behind it. Benefit of the community, the businesses, city of Solvang. You know, a lot of Solvang Brewing Company's participation in this, we are donating our products to in Fuego events to help with the with the success of the event. All the other wineries, breweries, everybody's involved are being paid at wholesale, and that not a lot of events do that. You know, having been in the industry for so many years, it gets difficult when you're going to event to event to event and donating constantly. So it's really gracious that Infuego Events is paying, all the local wineries and breweries that participate and those outside wholesale, at least for their products. So on top of that, like I said, any businesses that obviously want to donate and sponsor, I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. But, at the end of the day, our conversation started by bringing something fun and new that hasn't really happened in the fall. I mean, I've been in business now here for 10 years, and we haven't had anything like this. We have Danish Days, and then we have kind of slow season and Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I thought, with our conversation, it'd be a great time to try it out, and I think that it'll be very successful.
So you have to make money on this too, and your money is going to come off of the ticket sales for the beer gardens and the wine.
Yeah, so it'll be the tasting. We're gonna make the tasting somewhat affordable. It's gonna be between $35 and $40. There'll be a total of about 18 craft breweries on site. We're hoping to get about 6 to 8 different wineries there, and then also on the alcohol sales as well. And that will really be the only one, only because if what happens, if the idea we have happens, it'll be almost all the businesses in Solvang want to participate because they can make additional revenue on the street as opposed to their brick and mortar that weekend as well. Then we won't need to go out and get any other vendors to fill up the spaces that we have on First Street and Copenhagen Drive. We've talked to like 3 or 4 different carnival companies, and the way they work it out is they'll show up, they'll sell their tickets, and then they'll give back a percentage. They said with first year events, traditionally what they want to do is want you to pay them to be there, and then they'll sell the tickets. They'll tell you how much it costs. Then they'll charge you for their travel costs. The 3 that I've spoken to knew the city of Solvang and said, we'll waive that and we'll just show up and we'll do it like we've been doing it. Have we been here for 3 or 4 years? And we're willing to give it a shot. So I'm just waiting to hear back from one of those 3 to decide on which one we're going to go with.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. We'll go to public comment.
Thank you.
We have 1 speaker slip. Andreas Piper.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I'm not a cave person. At the county we used to call people like myself cave people, citizens against virtually everything. Well, I'm not that. What I'd like to do is just say to you, I'm incredibly pro-tourism and believe that absolutely anything we can do to bring tourists to Solvang is a good thing. Tourism is the lifeblood of Solvang, and as I've mentioned in previous public comments, that without tourism, Solvang will be a ghost town. That brings me to the request from the organizers of the Fall Festival for the $50,000 seed money. In their proposal, they say they will return $25,000 to the city, and unless I'm confused, in this letter from staff, it says $25,000 from their profits on the sentence, third paragraph. Now, what if it's a bust and they make nothing? Where do we get the $25,000 back? Under the discussion section, the events requests a 50-50 partnership to cover marketing event expenses. Once again, I'm not sure where their return of the $25,000, and it's my taxpayer money that's going to them. Also, the statements they make, they say the city will earn approximately $25,000 in TOT and sales tax. Where is the substantiation? I just looked at the previous small little business with the horses, and you were asking them for spreadsheets and putting them through the ringer. And here we have a company coming saying, could you give us $50,000? And everybody's nodding their heads and say, wow, this is great, we're going to give you taxpayer money. And I just look how the previous business was treated against this. So let me be clear. I also drive for Lyft over weekends. I would love a festival like this in town. I know with the Chili Fest and all of that, the amount of money I make over weekends, I can make $300-400 a night just driving on Lyft because I'm taking people back and forth, back and forth. So finally, I'm reminded that a few weeks ago when the council was debating funding for the Chamber of Commerce, there was some concern expressed from some of the council seats up here that we should not use public money to subsidize private businesses. Well, how is this any different? We're using public money to subsidize a private business. So I'm just a little bit confused here about the standard that we have. If they're so certain that they're going to get their money back, couldn't we ask them to post a bond? They can buy bond insurance. They don't have to post the full $25,000. They can post a bond. Once again, I love the idea. I will be there. I will have friends of mine. I'll call them. I'll let them know. It's something that I think is fantastic to do. Just please be good stewards of our taxpayer money and ask the right questions about how do we get our $25,000 back. That's all that I want to know. Otherwise, this festival is a great idea. Go ahead it. Just be sure that we're not throwing money and we're not going to get our money back. Thank you.
So I believe I did ask that question before this meeting, and I believe that is a risk that we do have here with this event, that we could put the money out, and if it was a total flop, then yes, we would have an issue there. I'll allow you to address that question if you have anything further to say on it.
So I completely understand his concern. Like I said earlier, Solvang Brewing Company is donating its beer to this event. That's how secure we are in its success. As far as being concerned about businesses asking the city, private businesses asking the city for money to help with events like this, I think that what we're proposing, what Enfuego Events is proposing, and what Solvang Brewing Company is coming in as a sponsor is something that's in the benefit of the community. I think if you look through what has been proposed, we just did Danish Days this last weekend, and I'm very happy to bring in the numbers with the amount of money that we donated to the chamber. The amount of money and beer and products that are donated to help out these kind of events, at the end of the day, it's about creating better tourism than what we've had in a while. Business is great. The city's done a good job. People are always very happy to be here, enjoy it, but we can always do a better job, and that's what we should be focusing on.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll take it back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start?
Okay, so when I'm reading this, it's saying that Enfuego Events and Solvang Brewing Company will keep all revenue and repay the city of Solvang $25,000 and $50,000 sponsorship after the event is over. Then it says the city should expect to earn approximately $25,000 in visitor-related transient occupancy tax and sales taxes. So I'm trying to figure out if they're saying that the $25,000 that they are going to repay us is coming from the TOT that they expect us to earn,
No,
or if
it's
that's going
specif-
to be above and beyond.
So the direct payback is the 25,000 back to the city. The indirect payback is any revenue generation that we receive through taxes such as TOT or sales tax.
It's kind of like the SCBB and the chamber told us that they would be making us, 13% on returns and all that. It's the same concept. So they're saying, we think if we bring in enough people, we're going to get all that money back. We're not going to know specifically unless there's data to be put together.
So provided that the first, that we received the 25,000 back, then additionally we would receive back indirectly any form
Hopefully.
of tax generated by the event. So
we're taking a risk. That's really what the reality is.
I mean, I understand that, and we also just, gave money for Grand Fondo, but we did it, based upon the fact that we want to promote the city of Solvang. We want to draw people
That's what
here.
we're doing again.
Yeah. I think it's pretty consistent with what's going on with some other things. So I'll just list, Solving Stomp as an example. We are seeding that event.
Yeah.
We have more history on that event to suggest that we should receive all of that money back. But before, it didn't necessarily work that way. We would issue a budget to the SCVB, and that would get us basically, 3 events? 2 events? Stomp and Yule Fest. So with reshaping how we're doing this, you're actually allowing us to bring in new events to the city of Solvang, find out what works. I'm not saying every single one of these is going to be a complete success, but it's going to bring, it will bring new events, new ideas, kind of freshen things up, which I think we all agree, that we want to do around here. And we can slowly shift over to more of a full cost recovery type model.
Or ideally, if the event does really, really well, ideally they'll come back
Generates
next year
revenue.
and say, hey, we don't need any money. We just want to do this event.
Mhm.
In fact, and then ideally in the future, hey, we'd like to pay you $10,000 to do this event, right? But you got to start somewhere, right?
Well, no, I know, and I think on my running platform, I was looking for alternate sources of revenue and new ideas.
Yeah.
So
I think this is very consistent. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes something to start any business, any event, anything new, comes with some form of startup costs. But you could just imagine, if this event turns out to be a highly successful one, then eventually at some point in time, it could actually be generating revenue for the city. The same thing happens with, I believe, Cambria Light Show. Look at that event that they put on up there, as it turned into a massive generator, I believe, up there of revenue. So it's those kinds of things. We could look at doing the same types of same concept with Yule Fest. It's already looking like Stomp might turn into that kind of scenario. So
I think one good thing about this event is it really gives the opportunity for all the businesses in Solvang to, for no cost, participate. And that's been one of the complaints of the businesses is having to pay fees to be involved in some of the events and whatnot. And this gives them the ability to go right out there and present their wares and stuff. So.
Yeah,
I like the idea of the
absolutely.
tents down Copenhagen.
Yeah,
So
it's a
it's
great
like
idea.
actually creates more surface area for viewing of the actual storefronts.
yeah, I
and
mean,
stuff
I've
like that.
asked before why our own restaurants don't have their own pop-up,
Right.
booths and whatnot out there during some of our festivals. So
And the last item I would just say is, since Robert expressed the concern earlier about how do you explain this kind of thing when you have the different funding for nonprofits, that these are all different buckets. It just so happens to be that the bucket that we had for tourism funding was nearing $1.2 million for the year.
I totally agree.
So that bucket has been substantially
And spread out. I get it.
and now that allows us to do some of these things that we are doing. So
That's a good point.
yeah. Is there?
Mr. Mayor, may I
Yes.
just ask if you end up with a maker of a motion, will the maker of the motion include authorization to sign a contract? This just says that, it suggests that, certainly it talks about entering into a partnership contract, but I think we'd like to know, is it the city manager who's authorized, or the mayor, or somebody be authorized to actually execute that contract?
Got it. And my last concern with regard to risk is there's this checkoff form. I forget what page I'm trying to find on the staff report. 209. So So we wouldn't actually issue any seed money out until all of these items have been checked, correct?
That would be the staff recommendation.
Okay.
Okay.
Would we need to include that in the motion?
I think that that's what
Yes.
staff's recommending, right?
Yes. Okay. So I'll make the motion to approve the event and authorize the mayor to enter into the agreement and for the city to fund to provide the seed money when all the items on page 209 have been checked off.
I would second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded.
Mayor Toussaint? Mayor Toussaint?
Yes, sorry.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
Okay. Passes 4 with 1 absent. We can bring Chris back into the room. Oh, and, well, we'll bring Chris back in the room and then we will deal with that. Okay, approved. So with that, we are past 9:30. We need to take a action on whether or not to continue the meeting tonight. I think we can pump through these items pretty quickly, so I would like to continue. I will make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded.
Mayor Toussaint?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Clark? Dearness?
Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
On to item number 8, Board of Architectural Review vacancy. Could we get a staff report?
Actually, we are on item 7.
Monterey Bay.
Oh, Monterey Bay. Okay, I'm sorry.
Which is Monterey Bay Community Power Adoption of Ordinance enacting the Community Choice Energy Program. And the staff report is mine. I am also a bit under the weather, so I will bumble through.
Everyone's been telling me they're getting sick lately, and it's even like the right time of year.
Mayor Toussaint, members of council, at the meeting of September 9th, the City Council heard the presentation by the Monterey Bay Community Power Authority regarding the Community Choice Energy Program and voted to participate in the Joint Power Authority. Resolution number 19-1085 was adopted, and the first reading of the ordinance authorizing the implementation of a Community Choice Aggregation Program was approved. The specifics of the program were discussed in depth at the meeting of September 9th. Typically, second readings would be on a consent agenda. However, the Monterey Bay Community Power Authority requires that the second reading of the ordinance occur at a public hearing. So we are conducting that second reading, and it was publicly noticed in the San Ynez Valley News. The Monterey Bay Community Power requires all interested communities to submit the required documentation by September 30th in order to effectively update the implementation plan and Joint Powers Authority agreement to file with the California Public Utilities Commission by December 2019. So with that, staff's recommendation would be to adopt the ordinance on second reading by title only. And that is my staff report.
Are there any questions of the staff report? Seeing none, we'll take this to public comment. I have no public speaker slips. Doesn't appear to have anyone that interested in speaking on this. Take this back to the council for discussion and action. We've already discussed this at the last meeting. I don't know if we need to discuss this anymore, so I would like to start by making the motion to approve this item.
I'll second that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Seconded by Daniel.
Mayor Toussaint?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Dearness?
Yeah.
Clark?
No.
Wait.
Yes.
Passes 4-1. On to item number 8, Board of Architectural Review, vacancy. Staff report.
The item before you tonight is the Board of Architecture Review vacancy. The seat was vacated by member Michael Mendiza on August 7th. I immediately posted a public notice and sent out a press release announcing the vacancy and inviting applications. We received one new application, and one application was remaining from our release for the vacancy in January. So our applicants are Caroline Bolding and Patrick Henry. So the recommendation would be to select and ratify an appointment to the Board of Architecture Review, or discuss and provide alternate direction to staff.
Are there any questions of the staff report? Seeing none. Public comment. I have one speaker. William Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I just want to get the assurance that the integrity of the BAR will be upheld with any recommendations or any appointments made. And I think that the BAR sitting seats should have some sort of say, some sort of input into who those appointees may be or be suggested. So do we have any particular people at this time that are suggested by the council?
We have two applicants, Caroline Bolding, who did apply before, and I believe Patrick Henry is a new applicant.
Are they here tonight? Will they speak, or?
They are not here tonight.
Okay. So what will our next plan of action be?
The council can make an appointment tonight or do anything else in our purview. So.
Okay, all right. I just came to represent the BAR, make sure somebody was here to speak for us.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll take this back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start?
Sure. Well, I would not appoint either one of the applicants because they are not here to speak on their own behalf.
I agree.
Okay.
Can I add, I love Bill, but it's not the BAR's choice to who they pick to fill that seat. It's the council's seat. That's the way we've done it.
You could probably make a motion to.
You probably could, but
allow
that's
them to
just
do
why
that.
we haven't done it before. When any of the vacancies were up, it came to the council. I was appointed to the planning commission by the city council years ago, 2012. But so that's why I don't think we gave a voice, or we've talked about giving a voice to the BAR. But I agree with Karen. I think if we only have two applicants and they didn't come tonight, then we should put it out again, get some input from whoever, and get some more applications of people that want to actually serve if they're going to apply and just think that we're going to pick them without talking to us. I remember seeing one of the people at the previous meeting, but I don't remember that well. So I would rather table this for now and go forward.
And we have a lot of other items to deal with. Just even in the future, maybe we should just entertain pushing this over to the BAR to appoint, interview and appoint someone. Is that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you cannot have the BAR appoint its own members. You could certainly ask them for any kind of input, but this is an advisory.
So they could give a
committee to the
recommendation.
council. Right.
Okay. I was hoping that we could give them that responsibility on an ad hoc basis.
You've been doing those things over the years, but I wouldn't suggest it anymore.
Okay.
I think Bill wants to comment again.
Okay, but I got to get the night.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I do believe we still have enough standing members in BAR that we can, table discussions and have a vote.
I appreciate that. That was going to be my question to you.
Yeah, I
If
believe,
you could
I
get
believe
by
we
for
still
another
do have
month.
enough members.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Then I agree with Karen and with Robert. I think we should table it and extend the.
We're not making an appointment unless someone shows up.
Do I need to make a motion of that, or did you make a motion?
I think that's.
Oh, well, I second that motion. Then what are we waiting for?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that one.
I
made a motion.
I did. I
I
said,
second. Oh, wait, you didn't.
was pretty sure I thought I. put
No, I
the-
didn't hear the motion.
Okay, all right, let's start over.
apologies, I felt that I made a motion to not appoint any member of the BAR because the applicants were not present.
Are you making a motion?
So
Yes.
I would rather amend it that we just table the item till the next meeting and put it at the very beginning and
Yeah.
request the applicant show up.
Or 2 meetings from now to get more time to get more.
That is 2
input.
weeks from now.
Okay, no, I said 2 meetings from
Oh,
now.
okay.
And I second
Okay.
the motion to table it to a future agenda.
Are we allowing other people to apply? Is that the idea?
If you start that process, it is an advertising process. It was open for actually quite some time. It already has been extended just simply because staff didn't receive anyone applying. So I don't know how much more you're going to get by going back through that process. I would just move on.
Let's move on.
Okay. So motion is to table the item till the next meeting and request the applicants show up, and we'll put this as the first item.
I would also like to have time to find someone else. So if I find another person, would they be able to apply with the other two?
Yes.
I'm not sure legally how that works.
You can do whatever you would like. It's your council. You get to make whatever motion any member of the council would like to make to do it in any particular way you'd like to do it.
Or here, would you like to make a new motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to open the application process back up and to note that we would like the applicants to appear and represent themselves.
I second that motion.
Mr. Mayor, would the maker of the motion give a timetable for how long you'd like to have it be reopened and what meeting you'd like it to return at?
Let's give it 2 meetings from now.
4 weeks.
Yes, that would be 4 weeks.
All right.
How long has it already been advertised for?
Only since August 7th, August 8th.
Oh, August. Oh, okay. I thought it was longer.
We'll get proactive.
All right.
I'll find somebody.
It's fine. So there's a motion and a second.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint,
Yes.
Councilmember Dearness,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Item number 9, League of California Cities Annual Conference Voting Delegate. Staff report.
Mayor Toussaint, council members, the League of California Cities is holding its annual conference on October 16th to 18th, 2019 in Long Beach. The annual business meeting is part of that conference and is scheduled for 12:30 p.m. on Friday, October 18th. In order for the City of Solvang to vote at the annual business meeting on the annual resolutions, the City Council must designate a voting delegate and an alternate. Per the League's bylaws, the designation of a voting delegate must be done by council action. Mayor Toussaint and Councilmember Clark, and as well as now Councilmember Dearness would like to attend the annual conference. So any of those attendees could be designated as the voting delegate and/or alternate.
Are there any questions on the staff report? That we go to public. I have no speaker slips. Doesn't seem like anyone else wants to speak. We'll take this back to the council for discussion and action. I believe that Robert Clark was already the designated voting delegate, so I would just like to move that we just keep Robert Clark as the designated voting delegate.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded.
Do I have to recuse myself?
Mayor Toussaint,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Councilmember Dearness,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. On item number 10, review of city council subcommittees. Could I get a staff report?
This item is here because it's been brought up to council a couple of times before. It's to consider the city council subcommittees and to receive some clarity and direction forward. And I believe the city attorney has some recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think this is another one of those cleanup, catch-up items that I'm trying to do. You, I believe, had a report on this back in May, directed that the city manager come back with recommendations, and then it never came back. I'm recommending to you, as the staff report notes, you have 12 council board or subcommittees. Of those, 6 are actually outside agency boards, which are listed. The rest of them are mostly what have been called ad hoc committees. I don't know whether they actually are or aren't. I would note my advice on Brown Act items tends to be, I think, more conservative than you may have had in the past. You've had, I think, advice that I would call inconsistent at best. My advice first is that if you have a committee, that you treat it as a standing committee that is subject to the Brown Act, unless it's very clear that it is not. There are some very clear provisos. It has to be advisory only. It has to include only council members. It must be less than a quorum. It cannot have continuing subject matter jurisdiction, and it can't meet on a fixed schedule that is set by the council. I think the most important one in looking at the subcommittees you have is this issue of not having continuing subject matter jurisdiction. For what are called ad hoc committees, but really technically under the Brown Act aren't committees at all, the general advice is that if an ad hoc committee's role continues beyond its original purpose or term, you should disband it and reform it or turn it into a standing committee. My recommendation to you from looking at your list of committees is to, at this point, disband them all. And when you have a need for creating a committee, create it, give it a clear role, or have it be a standing committee and have it comply with the Brown Act. But right now, I don't see any of your committees that have clear continuing roles, and the one standing committee that I see, I don't think has actually been complying with all the requirements of the Brown Act. So I would urge you all, again, in this need to clean up and catch up, let's just clean up and start over again. And if you have a need for a standing committee, have it actually comply with all the requirements of the Brown Act.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff report? Okay. Take it to the public. I have no speaker slips. Doesn't appear that anyone wants to speak on this. With that, we'll take it back to the council for discussion action. I would just like to say that I fully agree with your report there, and I think that due to the May 20th meeting, it was pretty obvious that there's been a lot of very inconsistent legal advice. So I would like to make the motion right now to delete all the subcommittees.
I think what you would do is disband.
Disband.
So my only thing is we have the 6 existing, correct?
You have a list of 6, and again, you have those at the May 20th meeting. I looked at them and I can't really tell you what they do.
No, I'm not talking about the 6 that you're looking to disband, but the six existing that we have here.
The other 6 they're actually technically, they're outside bodies.
JPIA,
They're
LOCC.
all bodies which on their own do the Brown Act compliance.
Right. So what I'm saying is, of those 6, Chris and myself are not on any of those 6. I don't know if that represents something that we need to remedy and put us on there. Not that I want to be on another committee, but is that some sort of issue, or does the council think that's
No,
an issue?
there's really no issue with that. It's SBCAG and APCD,
Okay.
and those are county level boards. Typically, the mayor of the city is the
on
one
those?
that sits on those.
Okay.
Due to my schedule and everything, typically we've appointed Karen Waite as the alternate,
Right.
and she's been attending most of those, and then I fill in if Karen can't make it. So that's how we've been making that work. So with that, I'd like to make the motion that we disband all the subcommittees.
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded.
So as I don't have a staff report right in front of me, we are deleting 6 subcommittees only, not the other agency boards?
Correct.
All, because I don't believe we even need a subcommittee.
Mr. Mayor,
to-
you don't even have the authority to delete the other agency boards. They're not subcommittees. The motion, the action would be to disband
the ad hoc
the City of Solvang established subcommittees.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I was saying. The other ones are already committees, or I'm sorry, already other governmental committees that someone could sit on.
So you're not referring to the ones that are on here?
Correct.
Like
Just the
your
ad
ad hoc
hocs.
library.
Sorry,
committee.
please speak
Sorry.
into your.
My apologies. Like your ad hoc library committee, things like that.
Okay,
I second the motion.
it's been seconded.
Mayor Toussaint?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Dearness?
Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
Okay, passes 5-0. We'll move on to council comments. Who would like to start?
Yay, I will. Okay. Well, I had a wonderful time at the Salinas Valley Wine Country Rodeo that we sponsored. And I hope that that goes forward and becomes a success. Danish Days was a terrific event. It was super fun. I was glad to see such a huge turnout, especially I think Friday night was one of the largest turnouts that I have seen in Danish Days. I really do wish that Mr. Skit was here so that I could have addressed his comment about none of the council members volunteering, because I would like to send him pictures of me serving beer in the beer garden or Solvang Brew. And secondly, as First Lady, Treasurer, and PR rep for the Elks organization, I had offered up their services to barbecue and help out. So I think that takes care of council members not volunteering at our Danish Days.
And just a side note on that, I'd like to compliment this council for having such high attendance, because I will just say, last year with the prior council, we certainly did not have as high of attendance or numbers of council members showing up to events. So I think we're pretty active in the community. Anyway, I didn't want to mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to compliment you further on that.
No, it's fine. I just, I think that, I think we had a presence. I saw pretty much everyone walking around, and if I didn't catch your attention while you were walking around, sorry about that, but I was engaged in the public and introducing myself and doing city business and Elks business.
Perfect. Chris?
Yeah, Danish Days was a lot of fun. One of the problems, one of the things that Ed Skid doesn't understand is that we actually, Daniel and I actually volunteered to sit in on some of the meetings with the Danish Days Foundation and see if there's something we could do to help them. And they just ignored us on multiple occasions. So I don't have to tell you, we volunteered. They chose not to include us. Secondly, the visitor center, I think.
Is it, I'm sorry, is it true that you have to get approval to even go to one of their board member meetings?
We invited, apparently.
Okay.
They kind of hide the location of the meetings. So it is what it is. Thank you, Ed, for bringing that up. The visitor center was interesting. To me, it was a success because so many people, I think, found this new group led by Brenda Ball to be very engaging and hospitable. And I think the facility was decorated in a way that was very appealing, including some of the old pictures that we took down from City Hall and took over there. It gave it kind of a like you were being invited into their living room, right? And people, I think, really appreciated that. It was crowded most of the time that I was in and around that area. And they also had hired an accordion player. I think that went over very well. So I think Brenda Ball's doing an amazing job, especially on such short notice.
And I think it was
Kudos
great
to her.
from so many people, members of the community, doing whatever they could do. We had Mike Hecker putting logs in on the fire. We had the Elverhoy Museum bringing over pictures. We've stolen pictures from City Hall or borrowed them for a little bit.
Which
so
brings up a great
everyone's
point.
been very, we've had water donated. We're giving out free water.
Is there a way that we can help them get pictures of Solvang, old Solvang, to post on their walls? Can somebody talk about that?
It's my understanding they're already working with the Elverhoy Museum.
Yeah, we already do have something going on there.
All right.
Staff level right now.
And then also with respect to the city maps, apparently they're running out of city maps. The question is, which ones should they be giving out? Should we contribute to that? the creation of new city maps?
I can just say that that is an item that is on Brenda Ball's list. One of the issues was that the map that has been handed out for many, many, many years from the visitor center, they actually did not have rights to hand out, so we couldn't allow that to
Continue, right.
to continue. So Brenda Ball has come up with some of the ideas on her list. One would be her just creating a new map that we now would own, or finding a map that is okay for us to use, that we have the, obtain the rights to, and use that. But I would rather just trust Brenda Ball with making that decision.
Well, I got one last thing, and this is something that our city attorney brought up, and I think it's a great idea. There is a trail that I guess we'll call it the El Verhoy extension route. It's right next to the old Alamo Potato Creek. Is that what they call that? And I'd like to ask the staff to look into clearing it so that it can be used in a much more effective way by the residents and even visitors. I know it's a public right-of-way. It's just done in such a way where people don't know that it's there, and it's not. I think it should be cleaned up a bit before we open it up to the public. So imagine it being more like a green belt, so that people then can use that to essentially get from one side of town to the other to Alamo Potato much more safely and much more quickly, and
So-
enjoy the green area.
I believe that area is the area that kind of goes past Lot 72 and is more commonly referred to maybe as the El Verhoy bypass, but that's my knowledge.
I believe the council member Uranus is including property that was relatively recently acquired by the State Parks Department and is managed by the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. Your city has an agreement right now with the Trust for Historic Preservation. They manage Lot 72. They also manage some of the property of the Mission, and I know that they are very open to having more expanded opportunities to work with the city, which might include doing some cleanup down there of there are a bunch of dead trees right down on the part where the road goes between Montecito Bank and Trust and Union Bank. And again, they basically own that whole strip along there.
Got it.
You could probably talk to Fred as well. He might have some ideas as far as.
So maybe we could ask staff to come back with some options there. Okay.
Matt has actually sent me some wonderful aerial exhibits of that area down there that show where the property lines are and things like that. So he may be able to also be involved.
Great. So we'll get that on the advanced calendar.
Does our lot, behind the world mark there, does our lot have hookups?
Like what kind of, like
for
RV?
hookups or? Oh, come on, my wheels are turning here.
No, it does not have that.
I'm looking into.
All right. Robert?
All I will say, two things. This is probably the first year in, I don't know, maybe 10 years that I was not working in the burger booth at Danish Days. And so as I was walking downtown, I really didn't know how busy Danish Days was because I've always been sequestered in the booth. So I had to ask Brenda, and she said it was very, very busy in the visitor center, which was kind of neat. It was kind of fun riding those mokes, and I hope that that business does well here in Solvang. And then what can we do about, I'm getting a lot of people talking to me about the traffic light at Skip Mesa. How can we research, go forward, help out some of these residents that want us to explore this?
So I believe that item is extremely problematic, but it's more controlled by Caltrans.
I knew that. That's what I explained to people.
The next step is if the city really, really wanted to do that, we could actually, there is a process for taking over the liability of 246, but that obviously comes with a lot of other cost. So
I'd just like to be able to tell them something.
And
if they want to sign up, maybe start a petition or something, or if there's enough, a couple of.
Petition Caltrans.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, definitely
Seriously,
because
yes.
they base it also on the number of fatalities and accidents at an intersection, and they have not even put up, a roundabout or stoplights at Grand Avenue and 154, and how many fatalities have been there, and Fox and Canyon. So,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Daniel?
So I participated in the Danish Days parade, not the main one, but the children's parade. And it was extremely hot, but it was a great little event, and it was fun to walk through there with, we walked in there with our dogs and our kids and whatnot. So, and I thought I had pretty good participation. I also had a question about the rodeo. So how, since I didn't attend, I wasn't able to attend, and I know did they have a banner up for Solvang? Was Solvang well represented?
Yeah, we had 2 banners up, and I've got pictures of me in front of both of them. We had one big banner right up on the chutes where the bulls came out. So there's, on my political site and my regular Facebook, it's public, shows me there, and then me standing with the Solvang banner on the inside of the arena also. So, yeah, I mean, it was very visual.
Good.
My comments would be, I think the parade was great. It seemed really busy. I loved our little fleet of the Mokies, and I thought that was quite the timing that it turned out to be I think it was like the grand opening for the new Moki business that's in town. And I think that's a great new business. It's more around experiential tourism and Solvang, which I believe this council has an interest in promoting. Danish Days, I really liked how they brought in the new vendor for the axe throwing. Noticed that was pretty popular. I tried it. It's a lot of fun. Did it 2 nights in a row. And then there's the visitor center grand opening that we had. Good turnout there. I believe Daniel and Karen also stopped by, as well as myself. And my last thing would be we had a mayor's and city manager meeting. Those typically happen quarterly here. And at that meeting, Mayor Holly Sierra of Buellton brought up this idea of Open Streets 2020 in Buellton, which is going to be an event that's on the Avenue of the Flags. We took the time to talk with her further after that, Daniel and I did, and we're suggesting that we put that on our advanced calendar for the future to discuss an idea of the concept is Buellton could host it 1 year, the next year could be here in Solvang, the next year could be in Saint Ynez, but you kind of move, and they really want to make it a valley event and encourage participation from agencies or anyone within the area to join that. So I think that's great. We'll get that brought up there. That'd be another great event that maybe we could plan on bringing here in 2021, and we would be able to see the success of it in Buellton prior to doing that. So with that, those are my comments. And
Wait, I want to say one last thing,
Yep.
and this is a big thank you, big shout out to Zena, our new city manager, and to Tom Woodrow for working so hard, so fast to at least deal with the planning department and start the corrections that need to be made there so that the city can move forward. This is something that we all campaigned on. This was our top priority in January, and I want to thank you guys for making this happen as quickly as you have.
based on your reports tonight, you guys have clearly been very, very busy. So we appreciate it. With that, we're adjourned.